Friends, welcome back. This is interview number 2 with Trinity. Some of you might remember her from the first interview that we did a few weeks ago. Now, we told her story in depth, but on her channel is where you can really hear everything. So we already covered that. And what we're going to focus on specifically here is staff abuses, what you're promised up front in Scientology and all throughout, and then what actually happens, because they're two very, very different stories. This is why I would say, by the way, I feel like whatever you want to call Scientology, we're lied to and therefore living a lie and manipulated all throughout. And we're going to talk about the unrealistic, and that's bring in the super cutie. Let's see him. Let's see him. This is our dog. Oh, he's so cute. Trinity says that he doesn't like being held, but he is a snuggle bunny, and he's just a baby. So he's so cute. Look at this paws. Anyways, we're going to cover the staff abuses, what you're told up front, and then what actually happens, and also the unrealistic statistics, putting it mildly. And if you listen to Trinity's first interview, link in the description box, you already have some idea of the horrible story that she's been through. And she's freshly out, right, Trinity? When did you get out? Would you say?
December 2nd or December 4th of 2019 is when I left. I believe.
Okay. Do you want to just pick it up from there, give a brief background, and then we'll pick it up from when you first got on staff and what you were promised, and then you can just riff away on the various things that you experienced.
Yeah. So real quick, I was on staff for about a year and a half, and I blew in December of 2019. And then I started realizing, I started just going online and seeing other people's stories about what they went through, and I got a lot of my questions and stuff answered. So 2020 I was quiet about it, and then in 2021 I started posting a little bit more, and then in 2022 I started I think it was 2021 I started posting, I posted one video. I don't know, over the last couple of years, since my family in Scientology already had a problem with me and quit talking to me, I didn't really have a reason not to talk about it. So over the last couple of years, I've been very vocal online. I've been making TikToks and YouTube videos and stuff. I had a ComEv in 2021, and I'm apparently declared, but somebody I had spoken to that I knew from then that is no longer in it said that there was never a goldenrod or anything, and there was never a declaration. So I don't know. That's kind of where I am now. And now my family really doesn't talk to me.
I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's always the fallout, isn't it? The freaking family and how they divide everybody.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And we were just talking.
It sucks, but I'm at this point, I can't, sometimes I'll have moments where I get days where I'm super, super down about it, and I'm a wreck all day. But I'd say 95% of the time, I just kind of anytime I start to think about them, I just don't. I just stop. And if there's a song that reminds me of my grandpa, I just stop, because I have kids and stuff. I literally cannot just sit there and wallow in it and make their childhood shit because mine was a lie. You know what I mean? I can't have a super sad mom. At least I try not to.
Good for you too, by the way, for not raising your kids in this, because if you didn't break the chain, shall we say, your kids would suffer the same fate that you did. So God bless you for freaking just getting out of Scientology.
And that was another thing I think I may have touched on the last time. Another reason why I do this is because my brothers aren't going to disconnect from me. Mm-hmm. And as long as they're connected to me, they're not going to be able to do Scientology. So their kids and stuff aren't going to be raised the same way, because all of our parenting kind of bounces off each other. And there are things that we took from our upbringing that are definitely we communicate really well with our kids, which is something our mom did and our uncle tried to with us and his kids. But as far as being at the church and being allowed to drop out to join staff and shit like that, mm-hmm. That's not gonna fucking happen as long as I'm doing this. So
good for you.
Yeah.
Do you want to start before we start at the beginning, Trinity, and we'll talk about what you were promised up front? You got X amount of money. It looked like a pretty sweet deal, right? Versus what really happens. I just want to ask the audience real quick. Do you hear any popping or noise? I can turn off my air conditioner. It's hard to tell what actually you guys hear on your end and what we hear on this end. So we're not looking for perfect sound, but if there's any sound issues, please just drop a comment in there so I don't have to have attention on that. But other than that, yeah, Trinity. So how did you kind of, well, we already covered how you got into Scientology, and your family's a big part of it. And it's a really, really in-depth story. But what were you promised getting on staff?
So they started recruiting me like the day I attested to my PRF. And the guy who recruited me, because like I had always heard growing up that like staff didn't get paid well and
Mm-hmm.
everything. So whenever I brought that up, he like did some math, and everybody's post gets paid a certain amount of units, and the higher on the org board you are, the more units you get. If you're upstat, you get more units. So he did like the basic math and showed me what expediters are like the people who just joined staff before they're posted. He showed me the bare minimum the expediters had been making regularly were like between $400 and $600, like when he did the math. And then there was like they had a nanny there at the time, so they pretty much told me, because my two things were I had to make a survivable wage, and I had to have childcare because I didn't have a babysitter like that. And they promised both of them, and it stayed like that for like the first 6 months until the money shit started happening. Well, the childcare kind of went out maybe a little bit before the money thing started happening, because the nannies kept quitting.
Why were they quitting, Trinity?
If I had to guess, it's because the nursery's like downstairs in the basement, like all the way down, all the way to the back, like out of sight, out of mind. And it's fucking
Mm-hmm.
creepy down there. And they couldn't really bring the kids, like, because there was a lot of toddlers and stuff, because it was mainly like Publix kids would go down there, but it was staff members' kids as well. They couldn't really bring all the kids up around the courtyard and around the org to like do stuff because it would disturb people on study and shit. And then they were just like, it'd be like one person stuck with a bunch of kids, and like that gets overwhelming. I wouldn't do it.
Would you say that anything that you saw there as you came to know more about it, that they were actually, it wasn't just minor infractions on childcare, like it was definitely a substandard, what you would expect from a normal nanny in Scientology?
Yeah. I mean, so they had all of the age groups together. So there were kids like, there was a baby who was a couple months old. She was super cute, but she started. So it was like her, a couple months old, all the way up to like 10, 11, 12. And there was like a bunch of just mixed kids, like age groups all together. There was a language barrier with some of the kids that made it hard to communicate with other kids. And sometimes they would like, that's another thing. They would stick like expediters down there with the kids if they didn't have a nanny. And not like, I'm not trying to be fucked up, but they would stick like grown men that like have no clue about childcare, and like teenage girls that had no care, like clue about like how to take care of kids, down with a bunch of kids. And like one time when I was on post, this girl came up to see me when I was on post because she was friends with like my family. So she came into my office and was just chilling. And I asked her about my daughter, because my daughter was like 1.5 and was in diapers. And she said that she had left her downstairs with this guy, and I don't remember his name, but he was like recruited off the street. He was never in Scientology. He just was there for a paycheck. So she had left my daughter and a bunch of other kids alone with this young dude that wasn't even a Scientologist. And she proceeded to tell me that my daughter has a huge diaper, but she doesn't do diapers. So then I went downstairs, and my daughter had a diaper that was hanging down to her knees, and she had like a rash from like the front all the way to the back, and she was screaming because she hated every nanny down there that wasn't like my nephew's mom. And she, like, I had to change, like I had to stop everything I was doing and go down there and like doctor up my baby because nobody had changed her fucking diaper in 6 hours. And then also the dude that was down there, again, it might be fucked up, but I have like for my own reasons, like I'm more like skeptical about like men I don't know and random men in general being left alone with kids for my own reasons. And again, he wasn't even a Scientologist, first of all. So like any other nanny before that, I felt kind of okay with them watching my kid, because I figured you have to answer all of these like crazy questions when you join staff, and you have to like get on the cans and do like an ethics check or whatever. So I figured if there was anything crazy, the meter would have picked it up and they would have handled it. But this guy was like not even a Scientologist, so he wasn't like indoctrinated to like tell all, you know what I mean? So anyways, my daughter just had like this massive diaper rash all over her, and she hated being down there, and she didn't like anybody down there. And they would leave them, like, again, grown men, and then people who were in like staff members who were in lower conditions and weren't producing would get taken off post and put in an expediter role, and then would be in charge of sitting down there with the kids. And a lot of them would just sit there on their phones and shit, which isn't a big deal, but it's more of a big deal when you have like babies and toddlers because they're actively trying to kill themselves. And they need like care. You can't just hand them food and let them walk away. You have to like pay attention to them eating and stuff, you know? Yeah.
Did you so what was the difference between what you thought and what you know were you shot? Oh wow, it's a huge helicopter going over. Let me ask you this: how much did you know about what how kind of different it might be? Maybe the pay will be a little less. Did you trust them when they said, "Look, Trinity, we got great, healthcare"? In other words, I assume that because when they love bombed me to join staff, they told me everything I wanted to hear. So did they tell you, hey, that the childcare is going to be great? You're going to make $500 or $600 a week, whatever, they told you, which we covered in the last video. How much did you actually, believe that would be delivered upon?
I was skeptical at first. I mean, the childcare I believed because my daughter had been going to the nursery like the whole time. I'm sorry, I keep messing with that. My daughter was going down to the nursery every time, like during the time me and my husband were on the Pure together. So the childcare I knew was pretty like solid. The money, I was just kind of like, I mean, I didn't have a job, so I'm like, really, any money coming in at this point is better than what I'm doing now. So I thought that maybe it would be like a couple $100, but I think my second paycheck, because you got paid weekly, my second paycheck was like $462.
That's amazing.
And at first I would really only work from 6:30 to 10 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday, and then like the 9 to 6 on the weekends. And it didn't feel like a whole bunch at first, but that's also because I was just an expediter. I was doing like, like I was on study most of the time I was at the org, and I was doing like cleaning and helping out in CF and stuff like that.
You didn't have an official post right when you got posted? That's what they had you doing at the beginning?
You have to get through staff status
1 and 2, right?
Yeah, but you can, I don't remember exactly. I don't remember if, hang on, I might have to let my dog out.
Sure. Yeah. And you can bring him on stream again if you want.
He hears my
guys, also, if you don't mind, like after this video is over, because I don't always watch the live chat replay, I don't have time, but if you don't mind leaving a comment, because it's a good question that's come up a couple times. Does it distract you if I throw up? I'm able to listen to my guest and follow comments at the same time while even though I'm looking at the screen, I'm hearing everything that my guest is saying. Does it distract you when I throw up comments here and there as my guest is talking? Just please let me know, because it's I want to engage with the people that are talking, and most of my guests, I ask them, does this distract you, Trinity, or whatever, and they're usually cool with it. But I can see how it might not seem like I'm paying to my guest, and it might be annoying on the playback. So just let me know so that they're concerned. What do you think, Trinity, on that real quick? By the way, do you want to?
I watch all of your lives. I like whenever starred comments get brought up because a lot of them you like really only put up like important comments. In my opinion,
I'm trying to do that more. Yeah, I'm trying to do just that.
Comments that are like giving good like criticism, like decent criticism and stuff. But I'm also like, I will be talking, but I'm also watching the comments as well.
You don't feel distracted when or that I'm not listening to you when I throw up comments like this that are pertinent to what you're talking about?
I pay attention to them too. Like I'm reading one from philosophy. Oh, yeah, philosophy. That's so cute.
I know. Is your name Sophie? Yeah.
That's so cute.
It's cool.
She said, or he. I'm sorry, Trinity. I don't know.
He or she.
Trinity, what did you do when you found your daughter neglected with that full nappy? I didn't hear her say what she did about it. Oh, I got really pissed off, and I asked like the girl, what are you doing watching kids if you're not going to change their fucking diaper? And then I went down and I cleaned my kid up, and I like spent some time with my kid. And I was fucking pissed. And I came back up, and like my office mate, and I'm not going to say her name, but I was just like, I was pissed the fuck off, and I was like telling her how messed up it was. And I wrote a KR, and I think I directly told the ethics officer and the chaplain about it. I don't know if the girl ever got in trouble. Which, I mean, it's not necessarily that I wanted her to get in trouble, because like she was younger than me. I think she was like 18, 19, and she hadn't had any kids. So like, I don't know, like, what expectations could I really have? But also at the same time, bare minimum, you can change a kid's diaper and not let them sit there in their shit and piss for hours. And I don't even know if they were like feeding my kid, because one of the nannies told me I couldn't bring like my kid liked yogurts and stuff, and she told me I couldn't bring it down into the nursery.
Why
And
not?
I'm like, so yeah, because like I get nervous letting people watch my kid too, because
Hmm.
like if they choke, do you know how to
Yeah, no
like
shit.
handle choking? So in my head, I'm like applesauce, yogurts, and just like creamy snacks are the safest bet, because like it's gonna take a lot for her to choke on it. And this one nanny told me I wasn't allowed to bring stuff like that in the nursery because it would get on the carpet and she'd have to clean it. And this
Oh
is
Lord.
also a nanny that was like hella vegan and was very like gentle parenting, but also like her and her kid were connected at the hip 24/7. They never did anything without each other. So she was very judgy. And she would always, I feel like she felt some type of way when you would bring non-vegan snacks in the classroom and stuff. And she would like I can't remember, like recall anything specific that she would like say, but I could definitely feel like she would look at me in disgust about how I'd handle my kid, which made me so mad because like I don't know. I don't know. She was just, it felt like she didn't like my kid, which made me really mad.
Yeah, and right philosophy of having kids look after kids, and that's kind of not just a Scientology cult-like environment. It's any kind of destructive cult. They see it's what is it about family? Like we're all just kids can take care of kids. Everybody's like a big being in Scientology. So the whole thing is just warped about the kid and parent relationship to begin with. And
Yeah.
that's when you get into creepy territory where they will hire an outsider, right, Trinity? Just for
Yeah.
that's not
And
even
like
qualified.
yeah,
Nobody's
and the
qualified to
guy
do
was
anything.
fine. Like he was completely fine and he was sweet. And I would go check on my at first I would check on her a lot, but then again my daughter hated being down there. So every time me or my husband would walk away, or because like my cousin was on staff also, and then my younger cousins would hang out at the org while their parents were on course and stuff, like doing their SRD. So if one of my cousins or me or my husband left, or one of my brothers, because a couple of my brothers were on staff too, she would scream. And it wouldn't be like she would scream for 5 to 10 minutes and calm down. Like she would scream, and I would hear her screaming as I was walking out of the basement back upstairs,
Holy
kind of
shit.
shit, because she hated being down there. And she was never like
Jesus Christ,
abused,
man.
because like even before, like I've always checked on my kids. Like I pay attention. I look at their bodies and stuff, and I ask like questions, and I ask, well, how do you feel about this person? Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she was never abused. She was never like hit. She was never sexually abused or anything, but she was like fucking neglected,
I
dude.
know.
And I'm assuming, and it was like emotional abuse, because I was having to leave her somewhere where she was 1 years old, expressing that
One
she
years
did
old.
not want to be, because we had her first birthday, and then we moved. Her first birthday was in February. We moved in April, and then we celebrated her second birthday in Tampa, and then we moved back in December, and then she turned 3 in February. So she was there like during her baby, like her toddler stages, where she was learning how to walk, learning how to talk, and like eat and feed herself. Um, yeah, so I can only imagine, like, and she hasn't said or done anything that indicates to me that she even remembers all of that. But I
That's good.
remember that, and it
Mhm.
like I can't, because my 2-year-old is with me, and she like, I'm very picky about who gets to have my kids, so there's a select few people that I actually like leave my kids with. um but it's just crazy, because I look at the things that like my 2-year-old's doing, and I don't even remember my oldest daughter like doing that. And like it's almost, I don't even remember potty training my oldest daughter. Like my cousin was hanging out with her around the org, and she just told her, I want to use the potty. And she just started using the bathroom on the toilet one day, like peeing. And I don't, and then from then on out, like she would still be in pull ups and stuff, but she would like, I don't, like, I never did that. I didn't potty train her. She just started doing it on her own. I didn't teach her how to eat. She just started doing it on her own. And it's like, it sucks, because I feel like I missed out on a lot, and I did miss out on a lot. I didn't spend as
Yeah.
much time with her at that age as I am my 2-year-old, and it fucks me up sometimes, but we spend a lot of time together now. And again, she has not indicated anything to me that she remembers any of that,
That's good.
and she doesn't even know what the fuck Scientology is.
Good.
She only asks for like my cousins and my aunt and uncle sometimes, but it's like my cousin that's still in Scientology, and my aunt and uncle she very rarely asks for, but it's like my younger two cousins, their siblings, that she remembers, because my youngest younger cousin, who was 12 at the time, watched her a lot. And so she remembers her a lot, you know, and she's seen her a couple, like maybe like 4 times since we've moved back from Tampa.
Do you think that your mom was public while you were on staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the differences? That's a weird dynamic because normally it might be the other way or something. So what are some of the things that stick out in your mind that played out as to how you were treated versus the public, your mom?
Treatment wise, there was, okay, so towards the time that I was starting to like be doubtful, and I started I took like 2 LOAs back to back where I was spending like a week at a time in
That's a leave of
Jacksonville with my
absence.
mom. Yeah, yeah. And the last time that, like, so it was a Thursday, and I was due
Before
back on
too.
post at 6:30. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was like, whenever I would take these LOAs, I would do 7 days worth of letter, because I was a new public letter registrar.
Mhm.
I would do 7 days worth of work and 2 to turn them in on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, when we were there, so that Sunday night when my mom got off her SRD, we could go to Jacksonville. And that's how I like managed to do that, because I went in there and I was just like telling them, I'm like, I'm going crazy. And this was after I was like being vocal about being suicidal and shit. And I was like, I told him, I was like, I pretty much was like, you got to let me, like, I will take this L, because anything longer than 2 or 3 days isn't like a request, it's a leave of absence. And you're supposed to go through like a routing form to take your LOA, and you're supposed to do a security check and shit. But I was like so persistent, and I was like, I wrote it down. I'm like, look, I can produce X amount of letters, and this time I can have it all turned in before I walk out of the door Sunday, and then I will be back for muster at 6:30 Thursday, and like my stats will be in, I will be up stat every time, and I would have to do all of this work in 2 days just to be able to swing it, because I was like telling him, I kept no case on post, but I kept going to HCO every single day and telling them like, hey, I'm losing my mind. Hey, I'm going crazy. Hey, I'm going to fucking kill myself. Like, I was being very, and I was, I got told, they told me, the ethics officer at some point told me I wasn't allowed to do that anymore because I'm interpolating the other
Do what?
HCO
Say
members.
that you're
Oh, I
originating and you
couldn't
want to
come
commit
in
suicide?
crying, and I couldn't come in
Really?
emotional, because you
Yeah.
weren't supposed
Jesus
to talk to
Christ.
anybody but HCO and the
That's
chaplain
right.
about it.
That's right.
So I would come to them because I would be so overwhelmed with like emotions and grief that I couldn't focus on post. So where would I go? I would go to the chaplain, or I would go to HCO. But apparently they can't handle somebody being fucking
Really?
nuts. So they told me that I had to quit doing that I had to come in not sobbing and not like talking about, not being explicit, and I had to quit interpolating people because they're on post. And I'm like, so what do you fucking want from me? You want me to just eat a bullet? Like, is that what you're trying to do? Like,
They didn't even challenge you like, Trinity, you're out ethics. We need to do your PTS handling. They didn't, because
they
normally
tried
don't.
that, because they would do that. They would do like ethics. They would do like a meter checking, like ethic checks. I think, I'm not 100% with the lingo, but they would like, the fucking ethics officer, I would get on them cans almost every single time I went in her office, which was multiple times a week, because I would be freaking, I kept getting KRs written on me because I kept being a bitch, and I kept saying, when I move back to Jacksonville, I didn't say when I get off, like, well, I didn't say when I get off staff, but I would say things along the lines of, when I finish my contract, I'm moving back to Jacksonville, which apparently you're not allowed to say. You're not allowed to say that you're not going to re-sign your staff contract.
Yeah, that's kind of right.
Which is like fucking nuts to me, because had they told me when I signed the paper that I was going to not only have to be there 7 days a week, but I was going to have to do 12 hours of study, and I was going to have to do sec checks and shit to break my contract, or I was going to have to do a sec check when I finish my contract. Regardless, you're going to have to be interrogated. I wouldn't fucking sign.
Well, that's all the shit they leave out, right? I don't think anybody would sign, because you make a great point. Like, not only just on staff, Trinity. I mean, it took me 2 months of sec checks and bullshit, scrubbing floors to even get out of there. And because I reneged like 2 weeks after, because I was like, oh, fuck this, I can't take it. But on the free wins at Flag, my dad would go to Flag, every 6 months and do the OT7 sec check and all that. They make it impossible to leave anything. It's almost like making a deal with the devil. Like once you sign on the contract, you're fucking owned because they don't let you go, my friends, on staff. Like she did her, what was it, 2.5 or 5 year, Trinity?
I signed a 2.5 year.
Okay.
And
So,
I didn't think it was going to be that serious. If I'm on, like,
of
if I'm
course
being
not.
honest,
Of
when
course
I
not.
first,
Why would they
because
tell you
like,
you're going to
if
be
you're not,
interrogated? Yeah.
oh my God, if you're not familiar with my story, like
Crazy.
we were in Scientology, but we lived so, once the Memphis mission closed down, we lived so like 3.5 hours away from Nashville, which was the next closest one, or the shitty Dianetic Center in Germantown.
Mhm.
We didn't go to that one because my family had a falling out. But so we were like Scientologists, and we were raised with Scientology principles, and we had to do like fucking OW write-ups and ethics handlings and stuff, but we weren't like in the bubble where everyone around us were Scientologists. Like we had some sense of normalcy. So we grew up as Scientologists, but we were also normal fucking people. We had a taste of like real life. So when I got there and they were recruiting me, all I heard was free childcare, money. Oh, I have to sign a 2.5 year contract. And I even was thinking in my head, if I hate this shit, I'm gonna just leave. I'll just break my contract and I'll just go get another fucking job. And that was my mindset because I didn't think it was gonna be that serious. I didn't realize like the extent of it until I was like too far in. And then I'm like, oh my God. Like I was like mentally trapped, you know?
And I know what you mean. And like you said, they tell you the world, and then even if you want to get out of a staff contract, my friends, let's say Trinity finishes, and you did finish it, right? You finished your 2.5 year to the
No,
end. No, you did get out of there
no.
a little bit
I
early.
was trying to get out like so I started staff July of 2018. And by December 2019, I blew. So like barely a year and a half, or
Okay.
right at a year and a half.
And even if you did finish it, you know that they would have put you in a room, pressured you to fricking sign the next 2.5 years. They weren't going to just like, oh, thanks for your service. Like any contract in the normal world, you would just be able to leave. It's not like that. And of course, they don't tell
Yeah.
you that up front, right?
No, no. And what's crazy is like, so me and my husband joined staff. Then two of my little brothers joined staff, and my older brother joined staff. And when like I don't know if they care if I say their names, but my older brother and then my little brother that's like my first youngest brother. My first younger brother. Sorry, I have like 4 brothers that I'm going to be talking about. I just don't
By
know
the
if they
way,
want me to
guys,
say their names, so I'm
her
sorry.
story has so many different brothers, sisters, uncles. You have to watch the first one. If we're losing you, apologies, but she has so many
Yeah,
people involved. It's amazing. And all
yeah,
this, Trinity, for basically not being like a typical family. Like normally the extended family that you're talking about that was in Scientology, they would all be Sea Org staff or whatever. You guys, like you said at the beginning, were kind of on the periphery. You weren't even like necessarily hardcore going down to the church every day, right?
yeah. No, we weren't. We were when I was a little kid, but then my family,
But
like
then
I
you guys
said, had a
pulled away.
falling out. You can watch it because I've done like a live stream with Doug, Aaron, and then I have like 3 videos on my channel too. But and I have a lot of
Yeah.
TikToks that I just like I make jokes. But yeah, so my older brother, I'm gonna have to ask them after this if I can say their name because it gets confusing. So I have my older brother, me, and then 3 younger brothers. So my older brother and my little brother that's directly younger than me, they joined staff. And then my brother directly under him joined staff. My older brother joined staff like 2 or 3 times during our time there. And then he would show up, he would get bored, or he would be like, they would make promises to him that they weren't fulfilling. And then he'd be like, man, fuck this. And he would blow. But he was never, because I think he didn't even finish his staff status 1 or 2. So when he would blow, they didn't make him do a sec check and all that. They just kind of let him go. And then
Why?
okay, because the same thing with my little brother. Both of my little brothers actually. Well, I don't want to go in too much detail because I don't know how much of their personal shit they like regarding that. Because they're still connected to my family, but I think it's because my older brother and my little brother are such assholes that they would get called into ethics and they'd be like, what do you want? And they would be like, you're gonna do this, and they're like, no, I'm not gonna fucking do this. What are you going to do? What are you gonna do? You're gonna tell my mom? My mom knows. Like, so that's like so they would cause such a ruckus with their like being rebellious that they were just kind of like, okay, fine, you're good,
That
like
makes
get out of
sense.
here, because it would like, you know how it is when you're like trying to control people, you don't want other people to see people rebelling. And the problem with me, why I was so emotionally connected to it is because like I feel like my brothers knew that my uncle wasn't gonna like treat them any type of way if they like weren't on staff or weren't in Scientology. But
Mhm.
because of just different comments that was made to me from my uncle, again, it was like I had never felt like he was proud of me until I was on staff doing the
I
shit.
know. I
So
feel you,
I
man.
was like
Fuck.
emotionally connected to it
I
because of my
understand.
fucking uncle. And then because it
I
was my
understand,
livelihood
man.
for a minute. And
Yep.
then I got really connected to the people. Like, not everybody, because it's really hard to connect with Scientologists if you're not in their bubble like that, because it's such a
It's true.
disingenuous friendship, because it's not like you can't tell them, have an open, honest, emotional conversation with them, because you say the wrong thing, you're going to get a fucking KR and it's
I
going to
know.
start a whole thing.
Isn't
There
that
were
weird though, Trinity? What a contradiction that is, because here you are going into session. It's all about open communication and putting you more in communication with your family. Yet that's this Orwellian silence of fear where you
yes.
know you can't, you have to, like you said, you have to only go to the ethics officer and you can get the help you have the specific terminals to minimize upset, because people are upset all the fucking time looking back at this. It's just we're separated and compartmentalized from each other while we think we're healing ourselves and saving the planet. It's such a fucking mind fuck, man. Thinking,
It's so
listening to you
fucked up
speak,
because they're
it's,
so
I
like,
feel what you're going
um,
through.
so
What?
Shanna, I think at
Mhm.
first, up until I was like 11, we were in Tennessee. We went to the Memphis mission and then sometime to Nashville. Then we moved to Florida when I was 15, and when I just right after I turned 21 is when we started going to the Tampa, Oregon. We moved in Florida. So this me being on staff is all me as an adult in Florida. But yeah, it, I whenever I first started, I thought that it was like, I thought Scientology was like the black sheep, like the outcast, and that they were like
Yep, me
fucking
too.
taking down the psychs and all this shit. So they're kind of like
Right.
badass, and they got like tax exemption, which, I mean, fucking taxation is theft. So when I'm like, okay, you don't have to pay your taxes, and then I figured out how they did, I'm like, okay, that's kind of dope, because like fuck the
I know.
IRS.
That's what I
But
fucking thought
yeah, so I
too.
was like,
He's,
okay, so these people
yeah.
are badasses. They're with the shit. So that's like how I initially felt. And then and like you said, there's all these courses about like communication and how to make you like a better you and improve all your relationships. So when I joined staff and I figured out there is so much shit you cannot tell your friends and family that aren't also on staff, like there would be things set, and I can't remember anything like super specific. But there would be things that like we would talk about in musters and staff meeting, and like specific policies and stuff that were only for staff. And I'm like, well, then why can't I fucking tell other people? Because most of the people here have been on staff or will be on staff at one point or another. So like, what's the harm? So a lot of shit is just so like they didn't want people knowing that we were watching Grant Cardone videos on cold calling to learn how to cold call to sell books. They didn't
Why
want
the
us
heck?
to know. They didn't want
Wait a
public to know
minute.
that.
Wait a minute. I didn't know
Yeah.
that you were doing that. And
Yeah.
why would they? Tell me about that. Why, Trinity, was that your idea? Grant
Hell
Cardone?
no. Hell no.
Why
They
didn't they want you watching him? He's a productive
No, they
Scientologist.
did.
He's a,
No,
oh,
they
they
did. They didn't
did.
want other people to know that we were watching his videos on cold calling like it was a training thing. They did. It's
Okay.
like they didn't want people to know that we were being salesmen. Does that make sense? They did.
Absolutely. I hope the audience can appreciate the fine line you're taking, because I do get it, but that everything contradicts. So they basically didn't
Yeah.
want to, they're using his techniques. They use a hard sell pack where me and Marcus went over it, where because he was staff and he has all the secret policies on how brutal they really are, but they don't want the public and maybe even the staff that you're saying, Trinity, to know to admit or to show how that it's a sales organization, right?
They definitely, the way they would speak to us. So okay, so I just want to start off by saying the ED
Sure.
she was fine. Like, she was nice. I know other people who have had horrible experiences with her, and she also like low-key tried to get me to leave my husband at one point, but that's another topic. She wouldn't stand in the staff meetings and the musters like, y'all are fucking. She wouldn't like cuss at us. She wouldn't ever cuss. She wasn't like an asshole. She was like, okay, guys, like, we as a team, what's the greatest good for the greatest number of dynamics? We can't be low stat. We have to fix this. What do we got to do to really like tone 40 this and get source pushed back in? Like, that's how she would talk. And she was sweet, like 60 something year old woman. So it was like other people have had horrible experiences with her. I never really had that big horrible of an experience with her, except for she tried to get me to leave my husband at one point, and she would also like
Mhm.
talk to you with those dead eyes, like you talked about, where she'd be like,
Yep.
you'll be sitting there saying something, she'd be like,
God damn it! Don't
yeah,
do it, Trinity.
yeah, like
I hate that.
but she genuinely was like empty because she like didn't have any family. She didn't
Genuinely
have
empty.
kids. Like it was because
Wow.
I would sit there and
That's
try to
all
like I
she
would
had,
say
right, Trinity? That's all she
yes. I
had to
would sit
cling
there
on.
and try to say like movie. I tried to reference like because she asked me why I had this tattoo of a
Mhm.
walrus, and I said my favorite animal is a walrus. She said why? I said, have you ever seen 50 First Dates? And she said no.
It's good.
No, and I'm like, this movie had come out like 10, 11 years before
Drew
this, and people
Barrymore,
were
right?
making us. Yeah, with Adam Sandler, and they had like the walrus.
It's
It
a
was
great movie.
yeah, good fucking movie. And I was like
Fucking
trying to
A.
explain to her my walrus tattoo, and she's like, no, I don't watch TV.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
not on social media. I don't get online. And I'm like, so what the fuck do you do, man? Do you just go home to your
Scientology.
empty mansion? Like, I don't understand. It didn't make sense to me because she didn't like what friends and all like I never saw her eat. She just walked around with like a massive bottle of water all day, which I do too, but she never ate. Never ate. And she was always just like perfect, prim and proper and just like perfect. And again, she would stare at you like, yeah, like, and even like whenever she would be skeptical of what you're saying, she's like, but still like with that fucking smile. Even when she was pissed off, and you knew she was pissed off because you could see it in her eyes, she'd be like, like it's fucking nuts.
You're doing it so well that you're reminding me of certain people at the Ventura mission and just how crazy some of these people really are. No, it's all good, Trinity.
No, because guys, that's what they teach you to do, because that's how they get you to get people in. Like if I was okay, so like my little brothers dropped out of school and they were supposed to be studying in the 6C course room, like their like way to happiness and learning how to learn and shit like that. That was what they were supposed, and homeschooling, that's what they were supposed to do because they dropped out of school. Like that was my mom and theirs agreement. And they hated it. So they would leave, they would get there long enough for, as soon as everybody started mustering and all of the staff members were in muster, they would take off and they would go run around Ybor. My brothers, my cousin, and then like other staff members' kids or people like public's kids that were just being forced to hang around and forced to do like courses and shit. They would take off and they would go play around Ybor. They would send the course soups and expediters and other people to go look for them around Ybor. And they even sent me one time and they would tell me, like, take me off post to call them and get them to come in. And then when I would find them, I would have to look at them and be like, hey, we need this stat. You need to sit down. You have to come study. This was your agreement with mom. This is really not okay.
Wow.
This is out ethics. You're going to have to get an ethics handling. You're taking me off post because I have to come handle you now. I really just need you to come sit down and do your coursework for like an hour. And then you can go do whatever the hell you want. Just please, we need this stat. And that's how I would have to talk to them. Same with my mom. When my mom, for whatever reason, because we were living there, my mom was in Jacksonville, and she would drive back and forth. She would quit. She wouldn't answer. Anytime you don't come to study, to course like you're supposed to, it's also considered a blow. So when my mom was blowing and she would text like the course soup or the ethics officer and be like, LOL, I'm not coming. And then she would turn her fucking phone off because she knew that I was going to end up calling her and be like, Mom, you really you have to figure it out. I will cash app you money to get here now. Like if you need gas money, I have gas money to come. And 9 times out of 10, I know my mom is full of it. It wasn't always because she didn't have money. It's because she missed her fucking husband and she missed her bed. But that's how they would get me to handle family members. Same thing with my older brother. When he blew from staff and I had to get him, I'm like, you really need to come back and talk to Miranda. And I would just I would hound them. I would hound them to come to events that they didn't want to come to. It was nuts. I turned on my own family because they were trying to live their lives and I was in this shit and having to handle them. They were putting me on them to handle them.
I understand.
And it was annoying.
Did you feel like you could confide it all in your mom, or were you walking this fine line because if you were staff and she was public, and like you said, you had to go handle people the way you just described? And believe me, I feel you, Trinity. You have no choice. If you're on staff, that's what you do. You put your fucking tone 40 in and you go handle all the fucks that aren't showing up. I mean, you were doing your job and you were being a good Scientologist. But did that conflict with your mom, could you confide in her, or did you have to walk that line kind of carefully too? If you don't mind answering, I don't want you to say anything that I know you love your mom and your mom had your back, man, many times. So if I ask you a question that you don't want to answer, don't answer it.
You're good.
Okay.
it's fine because she hasn't told me anything that she doesn't feel comfortable with me talking about. She watches all of this. Like she's
Okay.
probably
Don't
not
say
on it
anything that
now,
you.
but she'll be
Okay.
back. So I have always confided in my mom, but when I would, it would be like super watered down, like
Yeah.
half-ass answers because
I
she would
totally
ask
understand.
prying questions. Because again, like I've said before, my mental state and my physical state there was deteriorating. Like I gained a bunch of weight. I looked like shit. I looked like I had aged like 10 years. My hair was all kinds of like fucked up because had a mohawk and I was growing it out and I bleached it. Like I
That
was a
sounds
hot
cool, by the way.
mess. It wasn't at
Meaning
this
you were
point.
a
It
mess because
wasn't.
you were physically breaking down Trinity because of the pressure?
Physically and mentally. Like
Yeah,
I
I understand.
like I said, like, and I was chain smoking more than usual and I was like overweight. So I have like undiagnosed like asthmatic tendencies, I guess. But like the mixture of the chain smoking and the weight and the stress, I was like wheezing constantly. Like I don't know if anybody goes back to my old videos, like old videos. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm wheezing like in between breaths, like severely. So she would ask me questions like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Because I was also a raging cunt to everybody and I would like pick fights with everybody. And I was like, I acted like a know-it-all and I had like a
Yeah.
stick up my ass constantly.
Because of Scientology, Trinity, would you say a natural part of your personality or a combination of both? Was that inculcated into
Um,
Scientology? Because what you just described is the attitude. That's how I was. I was a dedicated
no,
Scientologist, and by
I
definition, you become a prick.
so I mean my whole family is arrogant and we've always been and I think it has a lot to do with like that's just like a Scientologist, they know everything and they're better than
Exactly.
everybody and that's just how it
Certainty.
is. But we're also like we're confident people, like me and my family are. But when I was there, it made me being on staff and the shit that they would grill into you to like handle people would make
Mm-hmm.
me a bitch. Like I would just start fights with people. Like you breathe the wrong way. I'm like, what the fuck is your problem? You need to go handle that in ethics. Like I would pick fights. I was a bitch, dude. I can't even explain it. My mom would see that because my mom would even tell me, she's like, you're picking fights with everybody. What is going on? I'd be like, I'm fine. They're just doing this. And I would pick fights with her. Like I would pick fights with her regarding things from my upbringing that weren't
Mm-hmm.
even a problem right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was like subconsciously I was doing that because I couldn't talk to her about the actual problem.
Yeah,
So
I
then all
understand.
of the resentment and pain I had from different things throughout my childhood would just come out. And then I would like get her and I would be crying in a car with her for hours at a time about this one thing that isn't actually, I mean, I guess I needed to get it off my chest, but it wasn't actually a problem then. But the problem then I couldn't talk to her about.
I
But
understand.
then when I was on the LOAs going back and forth to Jacksonville with her, I did start telling her more about stuff.
Was
And
that safe,
then,
Trinity, to open up, or were you taking a chance
yeah,
by how much you could
I
open
mean,
up?
I was taking a chance because, like, I didn't think fully that my mom would turn on me.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, my whole family started acting way different and way holier than thou when we got back on lines. So the people I knew before then, now they're like devout Scientologists. So I'm like, now I don't really know where we stand. You know what I mean?
And you don't know who
So
you can trust.
exactly, because my cousin, my younger cousin, who was, excuse me, on and off staff, like she was on staff with me, she would snitch on people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if how old is she? She's 20 now. She'll be 21 next month. And I'm 26. So like that's the age gap. But that was like my little sister. Like we grew up tight together. And I don't know, I wasn't confiding in her a lot of stuff because of the age difference. When I was like an older teenager, she was like a preteen and stuff. But I don't know if she'd always been kind of snitchy or if I think her being on staff and in Scientology made her more snitchy, but she would write KRs on people like it was nothing. She would
Yep.
snitch on me, my mom, my brothers, her parents, her brother, like her siblings and shit. And it was just like nuts. So I couldn't talk to her about a damn thing. And then she also like, oh my God, she was friends. Okay. Do you mind if I go off on a little story to like kind of,
You can do whatever you
okay.
like.
So my cousin at this point in time, I believe was 16, and the receptionist and the ethics officer are twin sisters, like identical twin sisters. I've already said the ethics officer's name a million times. So the receptionist is Aurora. And how old are they? I think at this time they were like 21, 22. They were around my age. So the receptionist, Aurora, had been dating the cafe IC. And then they broke up. She like fucked this guy up really bad. And they broke up and he was all heartbroken. He was like 20, 19 or 20. He started dating my cousin when she was 16. And that caused a rift between my cousin and the receptionist because they were friends. So again, my cousin's 16 and this woman is my age. And this woman would mean mug my fucking baby cousin, like looking at her like she would kill her, and would like bump into her walking by and would like write all kinds of crazy KRs about her and would start all these fucked up rumors about my cousin. And this was like her first ever boyfriend. She's still with the asshole now. Like, he's not a good dude. I don't like him. If you're ever watching this, I don't like your fucking boyfriend. But she, like, he's a fucking prick. And never mind the fact he was 20 dating a 16-year-old. Like, whatever.
Yeah, which is kind of illegal.
God. Anyways, so the receptionist and the ethics officer are twin sisters, and my cousin would go and tell the ethics officer, hey, Aurora's doing this. There was one morning we were walking up to the church and we were crossing like the road, and this bitch, the receptionist, was driving a car and she like stopped because we were crossing, and then she looked, and then I saw her, she looked hard at my cousin, then she revved her fucking engine really quick and then drove by and shit. And I'm like, this girl wants to get her ass beat because you're my fucking age coming at my cousin. Like, it was like crazy. Like, this girl wanted to fight, dude. And she, like, my 16-year-old cousin, because she stole her boyfriend that she broke up with. Like, none of it was very childish. Again, my age, like a grown woman. So my cousin would tell the ethics officer, and because the ethics officer was her sister, she wouldn't really get her in trouble. And then she would tell the other ethics officer, and they were all friends, so they would never really get her in trouble. So then she would get the chaplain involved, and they kept having to have meetings together to like resolve this. But the woman, again, she was a grown woman, was bullying my 16-year-old cousin because she's still her boyfriend. Or something like that. Like, and it's just shit like that. Like, in the real world, had a grown woman be messing with my cousin like that, like, she would have got the shit beat out of her.
Yeah, I know.
For real.
Yeah. But Scientology keeps everybody against everybody's throat. It really is George Orwell's 1984. It's a snitching culture, so no one's safe. And I didn't know what I can confide in my parents either and stuff. It's so weird. You know what's so sad, Trinity? Like, did you see that interview with Serge Delmar that he did on
I haven't had a chance
Aaron's
to
channel?
watch it yet.
You got to watch it. Everybody's got to watch it because, man, that guy just gets right to the point. I've never been against Miscavige or anything. Serge says it's the policies of L. Ron Hubbard, one fucking psychopath that did all the trauma bonding that we subsequently all experienced, and it's all an illusion. It's all fake, and it's super criminal. And as kids, you know, it just carries on. Like, I forgive my parents or whatever. They still, you know, my dad passed, my mom's still around, and they're clueless, and that's fine. But it just, that's why I love the fact that you're not going to bring your kids up in this, because they would have no idea, and their path is preset where they're guaranteed to have to go through the same thing and make the tough choice that you did. Do I stay? Do I go? And just the point I'm making is the whole thing is irrelevant. It's an illusion. It's a scam. This one fucking guy, even though he's been in his grave since 86, this thing just goes on, and it's all madness. It doesn't mean anything. The state of clear doesn't exist. There's no OTs. It's all a sham. And yet we're fighting over a lot. You know, we fight over our families. We do, you know, a Sea Org member, as you know, or a staff member, they think they have this incredible authority and certainty because they think they can handle everything, and that somehow Scientology, so there's a lot of bullies in Scientology too, because it gives them power that they never had before. And so everybody, like, you know, is getting their little power trip, and we're all running around disconnecting. We're trying to get up the bridge. We're throwing our kids' college fund away to fucking pay for the bridge. And then, oh, I don't want to talk to you anymore, Mom, because Doug's leaving Scientology. And the whole thing is just, it's an illusion. It's not real. It's just, I don't even,
you don't even have to do that. It's not that. They
don't have authority over us. Trinity, like for my dad was my handler. So he would come over and whatever, have a breakdown or whatever. I'm thinking of OT3. I went bonkers on it. And my dad is my handler, and he's got a little Sea Org member next to him. And he's like, son, you need to come back. In other words, they think they have some authority to tell you what to do. Oh, now you need to disconnect from your son, dad, Norm. That's the name of my dad, et cetera, et cetera. They have no power or authority. The arrogance and the fact that we go along with this, it's all literally fake.
Yeah, it is. And that, oh my God, that's what I'm saying. So many moments when I was on staff, and the way that, like, I would get spoken to and the way that I would see them treat other people, would just blow my mind, because all I could think was like, in the real world, that would be a fucking lawsuit. In the real world, you'd get your
Exactly.
ass beat.
Exactly
In the
right.
real world, we'd be going to HR and you'd be getting fired right now. But that's not how it
Exactly.
works. Like, there was like this, like, one Sea Org member had said something about me needing to lose weight and stuff because my vest didn't fit around my massive boobs. Like, okay, bitch, I'm sorry, I was fat and had big boobs when you hired me. And then they would also, there was another girl I worked with in CF, and she was a bigger girl, and there was not like, who fucking cares? But they would hound her about losing weight and telling her she needs to lose weight. Am I still there?
Yeah, you're just cutting out slightly, Trinity, but I think we're good.
Hold on.
I can hear you.
Give me 1 second.
Sure.
I don't know what happened. Somebody called me.
Oh,
And sorry,
okay.
somebody called me, and it took me, because it's all connected to like my MacBook. But oh my God, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Do
Take your
not
time.
disturb. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I had it off because my husband wasn't home. Okay, there we go. Should be good now. Anyways, they would hound her about having to lose weight, and they would like say things to people like, you have to look. They would want us to look like prim and proper Sea Org members, and they would
To
want, because a lot of
be
Sea Org members.
attractive to bringing people in,
Yes.
did they want to have you on the
Yes.
front line? And did you notice, Trinity?
Yes.
I mean, of course, this is the way, but was it definitely the pretty girls and guys that were
Yes.
put up front and ugly people?
Absolutely,
That's what
'cause
Serge
they
was
would
talking about. He's like, he
only-
said you can't
it
be ugly
was.
in Scientology and
Oh
be in the
yeah,
front lines.
and I felt so self-conscious for like truly self-conscious for the
shit.
first time in my like teenage and adult life when I was there, because up until then I was like, I thought I love myself, like I think I'm hot. But during the time that I was there, I never got picked to do pictures for promo. I was never in
Oh,
the
really?
front of the chat. Yeah, like the front of the chapel when they would do pictures for events and stuff. They would never just take pictures of me, but they would pick a whole bunch of others super, like, and everybody there is super pretty. So like I get it, but it'd be like the tinier women, like the women who weren't like, they weren't all like stick skinny, and a lot of them were like curvy, like women, you know? But they would never really pick the more overweight people. They would never really pick people that had like a bunch of tattoos and stuff, or that like wore a bunch, like gobs of makeup. And it was always just like the very young, like very beautiful, tiny, aesthetically, traditionally beautiful people, like the men too. And it sucked. Like I felt self-conscious about it, because I mean, who wouldn't? Because I was around the same age as all
Plus,
these
you're a
people, and I was
teenager.
never in the in crowd. Like I was 21, and a lot of these people were like 18, 19, like they were around my age. And I was never like, HCO were like their own little clique made up of like these young adults, like my age to like 30, their own clique. And then like other, it was very cliquey, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's a perfect way to say it.
And it was like, it sucked. Like, and again, that adds to like my confidence was shit. And it was like, I don't know, a lot of the things like that fucked me up. And then like, again, constantly having people like make comments about like, well, only the one Sea Org, it was the LRH communicator had something to me about losing weight, and then like my boobs not fitting in my vest. And then I would hear other people like bring this girl to the side and tell her about losing weight. And then the woman in my office with me would also constantly bring up this girl's weight. And she was a couple years younger than me, but the bitch wasn't even skinny herself. Like she was like my size at the time. So I'm like sitting there like, oh my God, what is your problem? You hired her.
There's a lot of jealousy going on too, you know?
I know. And that's like, it is so upsetting. I don't know, that upset me, because I feel like that specific
Trinity,
girl,
especially when you're developing and you already had confidence and you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And you're in this world that.
And I was like, I had just had like a baby, like my kid was 1. So it was like a bunch tied into, but I would feel so bad for this girl, because I think this girl was like 18, 19, maybe she was 20, but there was so much attention on her and her looks. But she she kind of was lazy, but she got the fucking job done, and she was loyal as hell, dude. Like mad loyal, like kept saying she finished her 5-year, signed another 5-year, like as soon as it ended, kind of shit. But there was so much attention on her and her like appearance, and she didn't even like she wore like the black turtleneck and the black like slacks. So like, what, I don't understand. She didn't do makeup and stuff. She just kind of like let her shit go, you know? I don't know.
That's part of the that's part of the checklist for a destructive cult, is that they control what you wear, how you look.
Oh my God. When you do staff status 0, they give you like a handbook or something. Ron had written up a way for women to do their makeup. Like if you have
Really?
red hair and an oval face, you have to do your makeup like this. And there was like drawing diagrams of how women with different face shapes would have to do their makeup. Like me, I would be
Really?
allowed to do my like brown. Like it would all have to be nude, but there was like he had wrote in detail how
Really? From
women with
Ron
different
Trinity? Ron
yes,
policies on how women and
yes,
men need to
to
I
do their
didn't know that.
makeup.
Holy
Yeah, like the
shit.
men was just like keep your
Wow.
facial hair and your hair groomed, but women he like went in about the kind of makeup you were allowed to wear, like
No
what
shit.
hairstyles and what makeup would suit your face. Um and clothes and like all kinds of shit. And I remember reading that, and this was like during the time that the stats were crashing, like the GI stats. So they were doing everything they possibly could to like get us back on source. So they like
Hmm.
handed everybody these booklets. I remember reading that like, if I don't want to wear makeup, I'm not going to wear some fucking makeup. But it was like apparently a requirement that you had to wear makeup every day, and it was like nuts to me. And that's when that was something
Really?
else that like kind of made me start questioning, like, who are you to tell me I have to wear makeup? This is my body. Like, why do you care what kind of makeup I wear too? Like, you know what I oh my
Because it's
God.
so controlling, because Ron had a policy on how to wipe the windows with newspapers, on how to do every little minor detail. And again, I kind of push that checklist called the bite model when people want to argue if the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses or Scientology are destructive. All you got to do is go through that checklist. And what she's talking about here is part of that is controlling behavior, the way that you look. You have to, every little fucking fine detail, where they, to use Scientology's terms, you get so introverted that you don't know
Mm-hmm.
your head from your ass after a while, because
Yeah.
everything has to be so controlled. If I had to sum
Yes.
up Scientology in one word, it would be control.
Yeah. That's basically, I mean, that's exactly what it is, I think. I don't know. He was so ugly too. Like, I wish
No
they would
shit. He was
publish
projecting his
pictures
own. He
of
was
him towards
projecting
the
his
end of
own
his fucking
hatred.
life.
I
Like
know,
my
right?
friends were over
Right?
here the other night, and I don't remember how we got on this topic, but one of my friends were like, he was one of the ugliest people I've ever seen, because his teeth were all fucking
Yep.
jacked. He had like crazy hair and shit towards it. I mean, but he was also like he was ill, and like I get it with
Yeah.
old age, like I understand, but at
No,
the same
preach
time,
away.
before he like even went kind of nuts or whatever happened with him and started stroking out and shit, he wasn't that fucking good looking either. Like that's what
That's an
you're
understatement. And I don't care about anybody's looks. It's
God.
not, I don't really care.
Yeah,
But the thing is, you make a good point. You want to hear something weird?
yeah,
Okay. I could tell how much I was deprogramming from Scientology by looking at a picture or a video of Hubbard every few months, and then being able to see his ugliness appear more and more. Because I got to tell you, this is going to sound so stupid. This is why I'm telling you guys, I don't know how to describe it except for being under a spell. When I saw the videos of him, I didn't see the crooked teeth. I thought, I can't even say this out loud, I thought he was, no homo, a beautiful man. I
a
can't even,
beautiful
I
man. So
literally
did my
can't say what I
brother.
really felt.
Oh
It's
my
so
God.
embarrassing. But I'm not shitting you, Trinity. I not only didn't see what I see now, this is why it's so weird. I'm like, what was I, what, huh? Because he
Yeah.
not only didn't look like the teeth rotting out and his hair and everything, he actually seemed, I can't even say it, man.
Well, now I
He
want to know.
seemed like a good looking guy, to put it simply. And
Yeah.
I just didn't see any of that stuff. Part of that was because, well, I mean, I really believe that we're under hypnosis in Scientology, straight up, starting from the
Yeah.
TRs. And therefore, it's not really seeing clearly. So, like I said, Trinity, I would check on my deprogramming by how much I could. I literally, things started to look differently as my perceptions were changing. So
Yeah.
it took me a long time to see how ugly he really is. And also the voice that I had to listen to, that voice drives me crazy when I have to do
Yeah.
homework for videos. But when I was in it, I was addicted to that voice, and it was very hypnotic, and I loved it. And I literally can't even listen to it. It's really hard to nowadays. So something was shut
Yeah.
down in my brain where he seemed like a good looking man, very knowledgeable. And his voice was, just everything about him was, I thought, was incredible.
Yeah. That I understand what you mean, because I mean, obviously like younger pictures of him, like he was a good looking dude at one point or another, but the older
You
he
think
got,
so?
like yeah, I mean,
Well, maybe just not. maybe average or not horrible.
Yeah, like
Like he
he wasn't like,
became.
oh my, like I wouldn't be into it personally, but like I could see the appeal. But like as he started aging, like again before he started getting like super ill and like losing his mind and stuff, he was starting to look pretty rough. But again, like I know what you were saying, like what you mean. His voice used to be comforting to me when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and I would hear people listening to like the lectures, and like my grandpa would go in his room at the same time every night and like listen to the lectures, and it would be like a comforting thing because my grandpa sounds a lot like Ron. But now when I
Really,
hear
like in
Ron,
voice wise and
yeah,
stuff, like he literally
yeah,
has
because you know how Ron talks about like this, like in the greatest good for the greatest mankind, and yeah, like that kind of like, you know,
Yeah. Do you
full
want
of
to take a
himself.
crack at imitating him? Because I'd never heard anybody except for one
God,
guy that did a podcast that
I
could actually do his voice.
can't.
You don't have to, but I
I
would
don't
love
know
to
why
hear
that'd
somebody
be
do an
funny
impression of
because
him
I'm
accurately.
trying to think. I can't think of anything verbatim, but just like the way he would talk like, you know, look at
I
that
can't
man
even
over
think of
there.
anything.
Does he look sad to you? No, he's in control of his environment and like
Right.
just like that whole like, you know, like into himself, and everything I'm saying is fucking pure gold. And that's how my
I
grandpa
know.
talks, man.
Really?
Yeah, and
That's
now
how
like
yeah, shit.
the Over the Rainbow, the clip with Laura
Mhm.
Anderson. I'm sorry if that's not her
Yes.
name.
That is
Her
it's
dad
Laura.
talking to
Laura, I
her.
just found out.
Laura, I'm
Anderson.
sorry.
The way her
That's
fucking
how my
dad.
fucking grandpa
That was
sounds, and my
my
uncle
dad.
sounds like it too sometimes. Not as hard, but that's
Uh,
like my
I'm
fucking
so sorry to hear
grandpa.
that, Trinity, because you are definitely restimulating me now. And I've watched
I'm sorry.
that. No, it's this is what I'm here for, man. It's all good.
Yeah,
I went through the dark night of the soul. I can take it. It's
yeah,
restimulative in a good way because it just pulls off more layers. I wouldn't have been good to go 5 years ago as a fucking
yeah,
wreck. So don't
yeah,
worry about it. This is really, I really like talking to you about this kind of stuff because
yeah,
I didn't have people to talk to when I came out. But you
yeah.
know what, that Laura, if you guys don't know what we're talking about, there's an Over the Rainbow video where this gal Laura, who's a musician, kind of rebellious, really cool person, grows up with a father, has a father that sounds apparently just like you can relate to certain relatives that with you, Trinity, and that is my dad. That's the conversation I had with him when I was like, I still haven't covered it in season 3 because it's all about what happened for 10 years when I tried to get out of this thing. But let's just say a period of my time was spent homeless and I couldn't get food and I didn't even have the brain power to ask somebody for $5 or, hey, can I get some food? I was willing to, I thought I was going to die every day for a while. So I tried everything. Some of the stuff I can't even go into detail about because it got bad. But let's just say I was desperate. So one time I called my dad, Trinity, and I said, just to give you a sample of what a conversation was like with my dad when I really needed help, because when I was in Scientology, he was my handler. He'd show up whenever I crack, and he was definitely there to help me. But as soon as I was no longer aligned with Scientology, I was starving on Sunset Boulevard one night. I had no outs. It was 2 days of no eating. And I said, I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to call my dad. I don't know what else to do. This was like every day there was some new crazy ass disaster like this, just day after
Yeah,
day, year after year, literally.
yeah,
And I said, Dad, I know I'm not supposed to talk. I said, I know I'm supposed to talk to you. I'm in deep shit. Listen, man, I haven't eaten for a couple of days. Here's my bank account. Can you just $5 is all I need. Literally just $5. I'm not asking for money. I'm not out of exchange. I just feel like I'm going to die. And he got back to me and left a message or whatever. And he said, son, just expand your anchor points, get some space. In other words, he's so out of it, like Laura's father in there, that not only did he not hear what I said, but he was applying technology of Scientology in his brain that makes absolutely no sense to someone who's out and dealing with real world problems. I'm going to starve. And he was dead serious when he said, this is the solution, son. Expand your anchor points, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about, Trinity, right?
yeah,
All the stupid horseshit, mumbo jumbo, that tech that we learn. And my dad was at the top of the bridge. So he fucking lost his mind so long ago. He was so programmed. But when you listen to Laura's daughter, my friends, in that video that she's talking about, that is a Scientologist. She's pleading with him like, Dad, don't you understand? Can't you see the obvious? Like I'm not, I have my own life. I don't have to follow the policies of the church. And no matter what she said, poured her heart out, yelled at him. This is what I did with my dad. I tried crying up to threatening their life. And all I got back was exactly what he says in that video. It doesn't matter what you say. You need to go into the ethics officer, and I'm never going to change my mind on it. We're just doing a father-daughter game here. You're right, Laura. I don't own you. The disconnect, the dissociation, and the programming just gives me chills whenever I think back to those conversations with my dad. And that video I've watched 50 times, that little clip of Laura crying and letting it. I like to let the shit hit me, man. I don't like to run from the emotions. And I was an actor anyways. That's another story. But I just leaned into all this. So every time I hear Laura, man, I'm like, that is the best example you'll ever hear of a Scientologist versus his daughter that might have a different viewpoint and be trying to creep away.
Yeah.
Sorry for the ramble. I just
No,
you
you're
hit a
good.
nerve with that fucking thing, man.
No, I understand. Yeah, it's fucked up because it's like there's so much disconnect that if you're literally like in your case, like, hey, I'm going to die. Can I please have $5 so I can get food so I don't die? They're like, it's such a no, you can make it go right. You just gotta put your like you gotta be
ethics in.
What is it? Yeah, ethics in.
Do the conditions.
Intention. Yeah, like
get your tone 40 in. Fucking stop being a victim. There's no victims in Scientology
like just
either.
Walk
Notice
into
that, Trinity?
coffee shop and demand you're going to give me a coffee cake. Like I'm starving and you're going to give me a coffee cake. Like,
exactly. That doesn't work in the real world though.
That's
exactly
saying.
right,
Like
Trinity.
you don't so much shit because like whenever they weren't fucking paying us and they would have us like foundation org would be working. We were working at the times that I could go get a job, like that my kid would be sleeping so I could like get a job or a weekend job. So like I couldn't fucking work except for staff and staff wasn't paying us and then be like, you just need to figure out how to pull money in. I'm like, fucking how?
Exactly.
You tell me,
well, apply
watch my kid.
Well, I'll be a
like,
Scientologist for a minute, Trinity. Just do the conditions and stop being a victim.
I did the condition. I can't remember the conditions now anymore. Like I used to, I was in lowers towards the end so fucking much. And I had to do, I remember when my husband came back from Virginia, I wanted to take 1 or 2 days off of post so that we could go get a hotel room with our daughter to see each other. Cause we like, again, we were sleeping on like my uncle's floor before he left. And I wanted to just sleep in a bed and I wanted to spend some alone time with my husband and like our kid and feel like our fucking family. And I was in lower conditions. I think I was in enemy. Maybe I don't remember. I was in lower conditions, and when I put the LOA request through, because both of my seniors, my immediate senior and then the senior, had signed it, they had approved it. I had to slide it under the ethics officer's door because I was in trouble. And she brought me off, and she was like, "Hey, so I think it's great that you want to go see Pete or whatever, but because you're in lowers, I don't know if I can let you go." And I was like, what do you mean? I'm going to be 20 minutes away from the org. Or I'm going to be in town. We're just staying in a hotel. And she's like, oh, I thought you meant you were going to Jacksonville. LOL. I'll sign. And then she approved it right there as soon as she knew that I wasn't going to leave like the vicinity. And I'm like, girl, like, what the fuck do you mean I can't go? Like, that's the shit. I would always make them approve like my time off requests. I would somehow like, I would just fucking make it happen. I would overproduce.
That's how you handle
everything
it?
I could. Yeah, like I would be like, if I can get, because I think the highest my stat ever was for a week was 612 letters. And here's the thing, like, okay, so I was a new public letter registrar. So anytime somebody bought like a pamphlet, like a booklet, even if it was like a couple bucks, if they bought like an assist or something, anything, and they had never been in Scientology, I would get their file. So then you would have to open the files and you would have to find a reality. You would have to create ARC with this person. You'd have to find a reality. So I'd have to go through their file and then I would have to type in, Dear Joe Blow, I see that you like the color purple. I also like the color purple. Doing this course made me enhance my love and my beingness for the color purple. I think you should come in and do the Dianetic seminar. It really saved my life. And it didn't. But and you would have to, because at first I was just doing one line fucking letters that I'd seen like 20 other people, because there was less than 1,000 files that I could write to. So about every 3 months, it would start over again at A. So I would write from A to Z because it was all alphabetized by last name. So in a 3-month period, I would get through all of these folders. So maybe there was, I don't know. It took a long fucking time is what I'm saying. And I would have to go in there, and they quit letting us do one-worded sentences. We had to actually like talk to these people. So,
and even then it didn't communicate, because what she just said about, hey, I see you like the color purple and all that, it's literally that pedantic and that ridiculous. Scientologists are so out of communication with the rest of the real world that the letters that they make don't make any sense to a person that's not in Scientology. In fact, it's embarrassing.
Somebody would come and get like a fucking booklet because it said like a fucking CHR or a Truth About Drugs pamphlet or like an assist, because like the assistant should look cool. Like I see the appeal of everything.
Yeah.
Because I mean, some of it is still appealing to me, but
I
I
hear you.
know so down like no, fuck that. But
Hell yeah.
so
Good for you.
I would have to write. I'd have to look for a reality. I'd have to look for some kind of reach, and then I would have to write like an actual letter to this person. Doesn't matter if I've already written to them 20 times. I'm going to write to them 20 more until I get them a response. And they even, so I had to do that. So I had to write 600 at first. So I overproduced. I could have steadied myself and I could have started out slow, but because they were gassing me up so hard, like, you're doing so good, oh my
You're
god, this
such
is
a
the highest we've
productive
ever
member.
seen.
We've never had a staff
Yes,
member like you, Trinity, and
yes.
I could see how
So then I
valuable you really
pushed
were to them.
myself.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was like, and I do that at my current job now. My current job is actually really good to me, and I fucking love my job,
And they
I'm
pay you,
compensated
and
very
you
well.
actually
Yeah,
really
they
help
pay the
people.
fuck out of me, dude.
You actually really
They
help
like,
people
oh,
too.
yeah, like my job now is amazing, but
Do you
here
want to
they
say
like
what
they
it is, by the way, to people?
Oh yeah, I work in a hospital kitchen. We prepare about 2,000 meals a day, and I work half like in the back end doing like cold prep and stuff for the patient line in the cafeteria, or I like put together the trays to take to the patients, and I go upstairs and I like give it to the patients and help them with different things. But I work like with patients in a hospital.
That's awesome.
And it's a wonderful job. I love my job to pieces, and they are very good to me, and they pay me very, very well. I'm about to get
That's
a very big paycheck because I've been busting my ass the last couple of weeks.
That's what I say to people, Trinity.
Yeah.
They get some really able, as they would say, people that would kill it in the real world if they only could take their natural wares like you have and apply them to the real world. So good for you. And especially that you got
Yeah.
out so young and you know, you had to really rebel, my friend. I know personally, I feel a kindred spirit and what it takes for you to kind of stand your ground against this whole family of some ins, some outs. I know what that would have took. And I know you went through hell and back. Just fucking love the fact that you're not going to raise your kids this. You have the rest of your life and you can integrate the experience and move on. Can I ask you a personal question if you don't mind?
Yeah.
I know you're fresh out, but A, do you think you'll ever be able to heal? Or B, do you feel you're already healed? Or do you think it will leave a permanent mark based on what you experienced?
I already I've already that's such a I've already started healing in my own ways. Like I said, there's most of the time I'm okay, but there are definitely some times that I'll like hear like my grandpa's favorite band is the Rolling Stones. I can't fucking listen to the Rolling. I love them, but I can't listen to them because
Really?
it fucks me up. Yeah,
Oh,
like
because of that, what
"Gimme
memories?
Shelter" and
No
"Street
shit.
Fighting Man." Yeah, like those songs.
Okay.
Like he had a heart attack back in October, and I thought he was gonna fucking die. And I like had listened to on the way to like get my cousin to go see him was like fucking Rolling Stones. I was like, it was so dramatic. So I'm fine most of the time. Sometimes I like sit there and I feel guilt because of the strain that's on my family.
That are
And I
still
feel
in, you
like, damn, it's
mean?
kind of my fucking like. Well, I mean, there's such like a divide because like if I had just blown and then I had come and done my comev and I would have figured it out and shut the fuck up,
Yeah.
there wouldn't be a strain, and I think my family would still be talking to me. But again, before I even became like super public with it, they already like quit talking to me. So
So you had nothing to lose. And you didn't do the
yeah,
wrong
like
thing, Trinity. You know,
no,
you
I
damn right you
didn't.
should not have
I
gone back and done the
feel
ComEv. Hell no.
I did. I did go back
I
because I wanted to see my grandpa, but
Yeah.
I
Oh my
wished
God. That must have been
I would have
fun.
done so many things differently. I was scared.
I
I don't know.
understand.
Like I'm fine. I definitely have some problems, and I definitely could probably benefit from like therapy and stuff, but for the most part, like I got it. And I'll always be affected by
Mm,
different things. But it's like when the state that I was in 2020 and 2021, I am not the same bitch I was then. I
Good for
handle
you.
myself very well now. I used to be like a loose can. I used to
Me too.
just be super
Me too.
emotional. If I was mad, you knew it. I would
Yep.
pick a fight with anybody. I would give everybody had always expected the crazy, angry, then crying reaction out of me when
Me
they
too.
would do something fucked up and I would react to it. Now, because I still I get in like little fucking tit for tats with my older brother all the time. So now when he pisses me off or hurts my feelings, instead of fighting with him about it. I just like I ignore it. Like I ignore his phone calls. I don't like I give myself time because I'm not trying to give him the reaction because I'm his little sister. So he's not gonna do this shit unless he wants a reaction out of me. He's my big brother, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what
And
you
I'm
mean.
not giving, and this is just an example. I just mean in general, like I don't let shit piss me off as quickly as I used to. And I had to because I was always kind of like a loose cannon. Then I kind of lost my mind when I was on staff, which made shit a lot worse. And I couldn't, somebody bump into me and I'm ready to like fucking fist fight them. Now if somebody bumps into me, it's like, oh, excuse me. And you know, like
Yes
I've
and
had to
no.
change everything about me. I don't even, not everything, but most of the things about me and how I like carry myself and how I handle myself, I've had to change a lot because I got so fucked up whenever I was there. And then I had to do a lot of healing because I just got sick of like, because I was still suicidal after I left.
I
And I
understand.
had such bad postpartum depression with my youngest baby, like my daughter. I don't even remember her being a newborn because I couldn't sleep because I had that molar pregnancy before that I lost. And I would just like stare at her all night, and you can probably hear them playing in the living room. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
so
I
you
would
want to
like
bring them
stare
in,
at
bring
her.
them in. You know, if it's just so heavy
Mm, I
conversation,
don't
we
know
need a
because I think they're like
doggy.
in their
Don't worry about it
diaper.
if you
Like,
don't.
yeah,
If you want to, please. If
I
you
just
want to,
don't
more
think they're
power to you.
clothed appropriately. But
Fair enough.
like the girls, because they're supposed to be in bed actually, but it's fine. So I remember just like staring at her while she was asleep in her bassinet and being so like, if I take my eyes off of her, she's gonna die. She's gonna have like SIDS and die. And I like would just sit there all night, like just crying. Like I literally would not stop crying for months. All I did was cry, barely sleep, cry, barely eat or binge eat a bunch of junk food. And that was just like, and I just wanted to kill myself. And I
I understand.
almost did. And it was a mixture of the shit, the Scientology shit, because I was still having to go through that. They were still fucking contacting me, my uncle, whatever. Then my older brother and his ex-wife started breaking up, and my older brother's family started falling apart. So I felt a lot of pain for my niece and nephew, and I was having different things with my family members in real life that I was like taking responsibility for where I shouldn't have been. It wasn't my
Exactly.
place or problem, but like I've always been the problem solver and I've always taken care of my brother. So now I'm like, oh my God, just listen to me and let me fix your problems. And they wouldn't
Right.
listen because they're adults now.
Right.
Um, and then like just the postpartum depression. And I don't remember her being a newborn hardly at all. And all I can remember, I wasn't happy when I was happy when I had her, but it wasn't like a happy new baby kind of thing. I was fucking, and then I went back to, I had her December 30th and I was back at work February 12th. Like
Wow.
I went back to work to get myself back into a normal, like, you know, like structure. And that helped a lot. But again, I had to leave my fucking baby with people. So
And you were,
yeah,
oh my God,
yeah.
Trinity.
And that's how I was up until me and my uncle had a conversation, not pertaining to Scientology, but just a conversation he and I had had. I think it was September of 2021, where he said something to me that triggered a huge, like, 3 hour long panic attack of me sitting in my bathroom floor on the phone with my mom, freaking the fuck out because I came to the realization not only was my whole life kind of a lie, but now I'm realizing my uncle, who I love more than anybody in this world, is a fucking prick to me. He is not nice to me. He has no sympathy for me. He has no empathy.
Yeah.
No, he loves me. I know he loves me, but he does
Yeah.
not like me as a person. And after that happened, and I went so fucking nuts, and I was home alone with my girls. I had to go put them in their room because I was freaking out in my bathroom, like just a whole bunch of shit, like triggered, re-stimulated me from this one sentence that he said that had nothing to do with Scientology, just all of it at once. That I was like, after I calmed down, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm just gonna. I started disconnecting from him first temporarily because of the conversation he and I had. But it wasn't because he was in town like a week later, and I just didn't want to be around him because I was so hurt.
Mm-hmm.
But then we ended up talking again. No, I don't think we talked much after that because then it turned into, obviously he's not going to take responsibility for how fucked up he was to me in
Mm-hmm.
that conversation. But then it turned into he and my aunt telling my brothers that me and my husband are drug addicts, and telling my cousins they can't stay at my house when they're in town until they're 18 because we're bad parents or we're drug addicts. And
And
my
you were just
cousins,
smoking weed once in a while and
we were
shit
just
too,
smoking
right?
some
But to
fucking dope. Like,
Scientologists, that's you might as well be crack
yeah,
addicts. Yeah.
yeah. So it was just after that is when I started. This got off topic from the staff thing, but like
It's
that's
okay,
what I
Trinity. We
mean.
don't have. We're not
And
here to stick to any specific topic. Just riff away.
yeah, that's that's kind of like where I'm at now. Like that is one of the moments that I remember the most, being like, okay, I'm fucking not gonna let my family affect me the way that they do. And I
Good
started
for you.
taking a step back. Like I had already moved like a good 20-30 minutes away from my brothers because we were all like on top of each other in the same apartment complex and like close by.
Mhm.
So I just like got away from that. I was like, okay, as soon as I get money, I'm moving. So I moved. And then I didn't see them every day anymore. So then I started being able to decompress. And my uncle did that shit. So then I was like, okay, I'm just not going to talk to him anymore. I don't
Right.
have to share a space with him. I don't have to communicate with him. So I
Good for
stopped. And then I found out they were him and my aunt and my cousin were being fucked up, like calling people, me and my husband, which is very offensive because my husband has had a very traumatic life that my uncle and aunt know about. He was raised by actual addicts and
Mhm.
alcoholics.
Yeah.
Genuinely, he's had you would not
I
believe
know.
the life my husband has had. And he's a wonderful man,
I
a
know.
wonderful father. He is not on drugs. He smokes weed after up until recently, he was working 70-hour weeks landscaping. God forbid he comes home and
Wow.
smokes a fucking joint after he kisses his kids goodnight.
Wow.
Oh no. Like, how dare he pay all of his bills and be a good husband and a good dad and smoke weed? So it like that's what really, because like on behalf, like he's pissed off about it, but more so on behalf of him, I like that pisses me the fuck off because how dare you? You know what I mean? And then never mind the fact he got into a fucking cult that he knew felt like was a cult for me and my family. Like not just for me, but to be a part of my family.
Yeah. Oh my God. You make another good point. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. I was just gonna what?
No, go ahead. Seriously.
I forgot. I was just gonna. He has sacrificed so much of himself and so much of his like integrity and his better judgment for my family in general and for the sake of our relationship. And it just pisses me off that they would say, like, I mean, I take it like it don't affect me knowing somebody call. I mean, it pisses me off because I'm a mom. So like, don't call me a drug addict because I could get a CPS case for no fucking reason. But it pisses me off because my husband has done every action that he has made since we got together has been coming towards being a better parent than his parents were. He has a great relationship with his parents, and I love my in-laws, but they did a number on him, and he is the best fucking dad I've ever met. He is the better dad than any other man I know. And again, he is in there playing with my fucking kids right now. Stoned or not, I have no idea, but he's in there playing with my children right now.
Just to drive, I was just going to drive home the point about what you make. I know a little bit about your husband because you know, and what a good stand-up guy he is. And the example that you're talking about the weed, it doesn't matter what else you have going on or whatever. I don't know what was inculcated into your mind, Trinity, but to me and Scientology in general, any drugs are bad, and especially pot. That's the fucking thing that got me into the cult, my friend. Like just feeling, yeah, I mean, it's so funny because I don't have a problem with it at all nowadays, but I can't get across to people that your story, that's what it reminded me. It's so hard to get across to people how serious that really is. Like my parents thought I was a heroin addict, and that's what I finally realized I had a drug problem because I smoke weed. And it was I was just being beat down by all the rules and regulations and being perfect that you have to be as a Scientologist. It's impossible to follow. That's why we titled this Unrealistic Stats. Whether you're in the family or the cult, she's not. Yeah, go ahead, do your thing. If you need to leave it all, Trini, or pick up your kid, I got stuff to cover. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
But you just reminded me of so much shit in this conversation, and that's the very. I know why you're getting frustrated, and I feel like the audience is like, well, what are you talking about? It's really significant where they'll find one little thing. They really think your husband is evil. It doesn't matter what else he did because he fucking smokes a little bit.
Drinking alcohol is fine as long as you're of
Exactly, and
age
chain
and you have a
smoking as a
drink and you don't.
Scientologist.
Yeah, you can chain smoke a pack of cigarettes and be an alcoholic as long as you
Yep,
don't
yeah,
come to post or study fucked up and you're of age.
but you cannot do
Weed,
weed.
man, weed. My family, it's literally like you said, the equivalent to being a fucking heroin addict. And then my
It is,
husband,
right? I'm
before
not
we were
lying
even
about that,
on
right?
staff, no, when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, my husband, he's always been a pothead, and that doesn't bother me anymore. The only reason it ever bothered me is because I was how
Mhm.
indoctrinated I was. I found some weed in my car when I was pregnant with my oldest daughter that he had forgotten in there because he had been hiding it from me because it's like his only like coping mechanism for his trauma. So
Understood.
it helped him. It helps him,
It
okay?
fucking
And it
helped
helps him
me,
eat. He
Trinity.
has
It
like
helped.
no appetite. So like,
I
anyways, I
understand.
found this fucking weed and I was so pissed off. He had just worked overnight and I went home and I woke him the fuck up and I like went off on him. I like punched him in his leg and I was like, now you have to call my fucking mother, my grandparents, and my uncle and tell them what you just did. And you have to make amends to my family. I did that to my husband. I treated
It's
and made him call my family and apologize to my family for putting their daughter in that situation and their
I
family.
understand though.
Isn't
I
that
understand that
fucking nuts? He should have left me, and he didn't.
that
He did
shows
not
his
leave me. He should
character
have
that
fucking left me.
Scientology is trying to trash by pulling out one
Yeah.
little thing about weed. I know he's a stand-up guy because we've had some long
You want to
talks.
hear something
Mhm,
nuts? After he left, he joined the crew at Mold Zero in Clearwater. It's a wise company. It's run by Scientologists.
mhm,
He was working there, like that was his moonlight, and then he got off staff and he was still there. One of Clearwater's biggest donors, they were doing mold remediation in. And he went into the son's room and the son was growing weed and shrooms and was a fucking like hallucinating and he like anyway, apparently according to my husband, a lot of the big donors' kids
mhm,
are like doing shrooms, acid, and weed. Like so much weed, and they have like their medical cards and shit. And it's
mhm,
okay with Flag, and they're allowed to be at Flag because of their medical cards.
mhm.
No, and it's because their parents shell out a bunch of fucking money.
There
Because if
you
I,
go.
as a staff member, had a medical card, oh God, no, that's unheard of. That is unfucking heard of. Even if it's a medical card and it's legal for you, absolutely not. But these kids or these young adults or kids, I don't even know, would get away with it because my husband was like, he was going to like fucking mansions, and they're like the dudes that he worked with would tell him this guy has donated this much to IRS, like IAS, excuse me. Um, and they would get away with it. And my
Yeah.
husband's like, well, what the fuck? Yeah, I smoke some fucking weed. This is bullshit. You know, like,
You know what you're
oh
reminding me of?
God.
Is
What?
the little brats that I ran around with it. You make such another good point because I was just talking with this guy who told an amazing story yesterday named Chris, and
Yeah.
there was pedophiles being protected because the person doing it was a big donor. And when I'm under the spell in Scientology, and I'm sure you felt the same way, Trinity, I believed all the policies. I didn't think that they applied by money or anything. I thought you have to be fucking ethical. So
Yeah.
all the little brats that were the little C-level actors that I would run around with that were Scientologists, Danny Masterson's crew, and all the people he hung out with, I was shocked about. There's something that doesn't quite make sense. Why are they allowed to kind of drink so much and do drugs? And I mean, they just must. I don't get it. And they're not declared or anything. That was always a point of like I never understood that, Nicole, because I tried to be a good little Scientologist. I didn't
Yeah.
take one hit of weed. I did smoke, but because that's allowed in Scientology.
Yeah.
I
You're
just
allowed
couldn't
to.
understand like until I got out. And then I talked with this friend named Marcus Sawyer who worked at Ventura, and he gave me the intel about separating all this out about how it is about money. And here's how your dad was manipulated
Mm-hmm.
and stuff. I'm still getting my mind blown away by that, and the layers are peeling off because am I
Yeah.
wrong, Trinity? When you're in there, it's about the policies of Harvard. There's no such thing as just because you give too much money. I mean, you can kind of buy yourself out of certain things, but I just didn't realize how you can smoke weed and you can do drugs. I didn't know about the shroom thing, but you're reminding me of that little brat pack I ran with. They did things that were so out ethics, and yet
It's
they were kind of
money.
promoting Scientology. And I thought
Yeah.
that was just a crowd or whatever, but the real people like me were trying to be hardcore Scientologists. But it's set up that way. It's all about what that guy Chris said yesterday: fucking money, and what you
It
just
is. And my
said. That's
husband
literally
called
it.
that. My husband
Really?
called it because I started having doubts when we quit getting paid just because I'm like, oh my God, this is so humane. How are you expecting people to work 40 plus hours a week and give them
Hmm.
$20? Like, that's inhumane, in my opinion. But he started calling it like it's money. And then, like, that's what my husband said. My husband was like, they get away with it and they're still called for flag because their parents give the church a lot of fucking money. And that's
Yep.
exactly what it is. Like, because like we did the Pure of, and my older brother, he did the Pure of separately, but he would, some of the people we did the Pure with were in their, like their third, fourth, fifth time because they smoked some fucking weed and they had the money to just no big deal, or the credit to just no big deal.
Exactly.
And they'd be like, and they would openly be talking, yeah, I smoked some weed, so now I'm gonna run it out, like type
Right.
shit. And I'm like, must be
That's
fucking nice. You're doing a $2,500 Pure for the fucking sixth time in 3 years, bitch. God, like it's the people, like it's the big donor, like bigger donors. Like Flag would get most of the big donors. Tampa wouldn't get.
Mhm.
Tampa would get like above average middle class people that would donate a decent amount of money and buy services and stuff like that. But it was mainly like Flag that people were donating their money to. But that's like also like there's this one guy, and again, I don't know anything personal about people like that, like especially public, but you know how like you can get around people and just have a feeling of I don't want to be alone with this person. Kids
Yep.
don't need to be alone with this person. Like just an intuition.
I had that
There's this
firing on all
one,
cylinders since getting out of the cult.
yeah.
I don't trust anybody. I have
Well, I had
massive
that
trust
feeling,
issues.
and I think it's because again, I grew up kind of normal. I had that feeling with a lot of people growing up at the org. I had that feeling about staff members and public, certain people. And one of the ladies who had signed over like a large sum, like a loan, taken a loan out for my mom, like a big chunk of money. Like she was a staff member. She had a little bit of money. You know what I mean? Her son was in the course room, like the academy course room. And my uncle would come and tell me, he wouldn't tell me many specifics, but he'd be like, that guy, like, he makes my stomach turn. Something about this guy. And I thought maybe my uncle, because he was on his SRD, so I was like, maybe he's just getting re-stimulated, like, whatever. But my uncle would just describe, like, just being in his presence is just like, I don't know, but I'm trying not to be an asshole because, like, he's here handling it. He's doing something, whatever it is, he's doing something about it. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, if you're, and this is fucked up. I wouldn't have ever left my kids with nobody, but in my head at the time, I'm like, even if somebody was like a fucking pedophile or something, the church would report it and then they would just handle it and they wouldn't reoffend again, right? So this guy,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that's like, that was my mind. I wouldn't have left my kid alone with them if I had
Trinity. That's what we all believe. That's what I'm saying. We believe in the policies. Of course, the church is going to handle it. There's not going to be any pedophiles that are going to be running around or anything even close to that.
Okay with my kids being with the nanny, so whatever. Then the guy that my uncle was talking about, I shared a space with him just briefly, and I felt, again, this is just me speculating and going off of my own gut intuition. It felt very nasty, and it felt very, don't look at my child. And there were several people at the org like that. But again, I'm bringing up him because his mom was a donor and she kept signing off like loans for people to put on their books. And she was a staff member. So it's like what I'm saying. Hey, and he kept having to do my uncle told me that he had to do he was always in ethics doing like a bunch of ethics handlings and shit. And that his energy, like his area just felt heavy and felt fucked up. And then as soon as I shared a space with him, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this, I see what you mean. And again, my intuition, I would feel like people are like fucking pedophiles. I would feel like people are like offenders. And I've met people like that throughout my fucking life. So I feel like my gut intuition is pretty spot on. So when I would get around these people that would give me that same gut feeling, I would just like mentally note it. And like my uncle said, whatever it is, they're here handling it now.
Exactly.
Right? So I would just note in my head, don't leave your kid alone with them. And it's like, and I'm not trying to go on this big fucking rant about how we should kill all the pedophiles and shit like that. But in Scientology was the only time that I ever felt like if anything could be done about something like that, this is the only place to do it. And I don't feel like that anymore. Like, no, once you do something like that, you've done something like that. And like, I don't want to go into detail about how I feel
again,
about
Trinity, you're talking about what should happen in the real world versus the protection that Scientology gets and how we justify it.
I thought that Scientology would handle something like that.
Of course, me fucking
but
too.
obviously fucking not, because now I know
the opposite of that,
after
Trinity.
listening to Chris's story, I was there like at the tail end of the live.
Did
last
you hear
night.
his story?
A good
it's
hour and a half.
unbelievable.
Yes, it was disgusting. I couldn't and I can't even imagine, like, he's one auditor. And all of the people at the org that I felt weird about, imagine what those ethics officers and those fucking auditors know. And they have to sit there through. Mind you, a lot of the auditors at the org are young women. that were like around my age. And I remember when I did Dianetics auditing with somebody that I knew in my personal life, the instructor, because we had done the seminar, and then she audited me, and then I had to audit her. Something had come up when I was auditing her that she full stop was like, I don't want to talk about. And the instructor, the Dianetic instructor, kept pushing her
Get
and
it out of
pushing her.
her.
And yes, well, was pushing, like she would jump in, like intervene where it was necessary.
Oh, wow.
And forced her to talk about the worst thing that's ever happened to her, that I had no business knowing, that she did not. I had ideas with conversations she had brought up in our personal lives. The extreme detail that she had went into, she did not want to share that with me, and she was forced to share that with me. And I remember, again, these rooms, huge windows with barely any blinds or curtains, so you're pouring sweat. It was July. And she is sitting there absolutely fucking hysterical, reliving for hours the worst thing that ever happened to her, covered in sweat, pregnant, sobbing with her eyes closed. I'm sitting in front of her. My voice sounds like this, but I am just in bits, and I keep looking at the instructor and mouthing, "Can you please stop?" Mouthing, "I don't want to hear this. I can't do this." She had to relive her trauma, and I am now traumatized because it was not my place to hear that, and I did not want to hear that. Ever since that happened, every time I look at this person, all I can see is what they told me. And it was none of my fucking, if she wanted to talk to me about it in great detail, she should have been able to do it on her own volition and her own time, because I've had other people confide in me horrible things, but it didn't feel so fucked up for me because it wasn't a forced thing. This woman was forced to talk to me about this, and now I'm fucked up. I still think about that and get emotional because the great detail that she was forced to go into, whether she just pulled it out of her head or not, I think that it was all genuine, because I think this is one of the first, I think most of what she said was genuine, if not all of it. It was forced, but she was getting it out. And then afterwards, when we're done, they were like, the instructor took over and they're like, "So how do you feel now?" And she's like, "Okay, I guess." I think at this point she just wanted to be done.
Yeah.
And then when we left, she was like, "I feel like I feel horrible. I didn't want to talk about that." And I didn't tell the instructor what she said, because then they would try to get her back in it. And because, again, I'm not trying to reveal this person's identity, but yeah, like, and that fucking, I'm sure it traumatized her, because it sure as fuck traumatized me, and it didn't even happen to me. Just hearing it, because I'm not a professional, I'm not a counselor. I'm not, like I said, I've had conversations with people where they disclose very traumatic things that happen to them, but it's a casual conversation.
Right.
She didn't even want to do the Dianetic seminar to begin with. She wasn't into Scientology. It was all a forced thing from the beginning.
That is such a fucking great point. And I'm having realizations as you're talking, because you know what it does? It's removing everybody's boundaries, and they get you to overshare. And you just reminded me of so many auditing sessions and why I told my mom and dad and why I resisted it for so long. Something felt wrong about. So they say that you get case gain. You can only go spiritually free if you're honest with your auditor, with the having your buttons pressed and TR0 bulbate. So opening up to your trauma and talking about it like you might do in a psychotherapy session is, you can see, guys, how by being encouraged to be honest so we can become spiritually free, we can't have boundaries. So they get removed more and more. You just reminded me of the auditing that I had as a kid, where they beat it out of you, and the meter's going to keep saying, the auditor's going to keep saying there, that right there. And I would dodge around with some bullshit incident in my head. But finally, it seems to be able to kind of, it picks up on where you're stressed out. So I learned early on, but it was hard to get over this hump, to tell all, if I want case gain. I don't want to be burning money in here. And my parents are paying for it when I was a kid and shit, and when I was growing up. So it's like, I just wanted to be ethical. So I started to get used to oversharing. And that's something I had to shut down, and I'm still working on when I've gotten out, because there's boundaries in the real world, and you need to have them. And I got used to so oversharing. I was traumatizing myself over and over and over again. And then I would come out of session with this. This is trauma, guys. While you're saying, you know, that fake smile that you were saying, Trinity, of that gal who has no life. And she's like, well, honey. And then she gets hurt by something. You say, you're looking at traumatized people when you look in those Scientologist eyes. Those are the eyes I had for most of my life, man. And it all was I thought it was beneficial by being open. I'm being a good person. Look at how open I can be, and it's helping me in my acting career because I don't have all the boundaries that all the other actors and shit have.
Yeah.
Yet it fucked me the fuck up. And then I also thought of another one where there's this gal that I had to lay into on TR0 Bullbait about her weight, and she's this really old lady, and she's really sweet. And they made me keep doing it. It's like she's crying and everything, and I'm like, I can't fucking do this. Like, right, man. I'm like, I can't do it. Put your
Yeah.
TRs in. She wants you to do it. She wants you to get over this button. So by the time I finally did it, her look was like this, and she stopped reacting, which is the point. And she said, "Yeah, I have a really good win." And you could just tell she was going to walk away that night and just maybe even throw herself off the building. This is why people commit suicide, because Trinity, you just drove home the point of how our boundaries are freaking smashed, and we
Yeah.
think that's a good thing. We're not trying to
Yeah.
snitch on our parents or somebody. We're trying to put their fucking ethics in.
Yeah, like you have to. And I mean, again, like I'm thankful that we grew up with some sort of normalcy, because whenever I only done a couple of Dianetic auditing sessions, I hated being the one audited. I would rather have been the auditor. But when I did like my life repair, my sec check and different shit, I never really told all. And I would figure out a way to lie or to
I
bring
tried
up
to for a
something
while.
else. And because had I told, like, when I did a life repair, it was with this very sweet woman. And this was the only time auditing had ever benefited me whatsoever. I felt very comfortable with her, and she felt like a very genuine person. Like, I just felt a connection with her. And like the therapist I always fucking needed and wanted
That's how I
was this
felt with
woman.
my
And she was
auditor.
wonderful, and I hope she's doing amazing currently. Somehow the session, it was a life repair, because again I was kind of going crazy.
Just to
Turned
explain real
into
quick to the audience, if you don't mind, the life repair is one of the first actions that people do, and it can be powerful because it's not too heavy, and you can address present time problems. Please continue.
Yes, yeah. But we had gotten on a topic of, like, because again, like when I was a teenager, I was like promiscuous and different things like that. So that topic had come up, but I felt comfortable speaking with her about it in an intimate way, and it had helped me come to the realization that when I was 14, I had been assaulted by a 23-year-old man. And I had always felt weird about, yes, and I had always felt weird about the situation since it happened, but I just kind of like brushed it off. But us going over it in the life repair and her asking me questions, I was like, holy fuck, I was 14 and I was very drunk. Holy fuck, it just happened because I was drunk and I was already there, so I figured I might as well just you know what I mean? Like, and even though it wasn't like a, oh no, stop kind of thing, I was still 14. And you were
Damn
still
right you
23, and you had gotten me drunk and you had gotten me stoned, and
That's
it was,
right.
so regardless, it was assault. And I had come to that
That's right.
realization I was 22 when that happened, when the life repair happened. So from the time I was 14 until I was 22, I just kind of would like push it to the back of my head. Something would remind me about it. I'd be like, oh, that's weird. He lied to me. He told me he was 17 the first time. And then the next day I found out he was 23, and then it happened again. So it was like let me not think about that. Cause I was just like, it was weird. But then the life repair helped me come to terms with, no, I was assaulted and it wasn't okay. And I was a child being taken advantage of and preyed upon by a grown man. And I was able to sit there and let out all of that like pent up emotion. And I felt her genuinely with caring eyes just looking at me like, tell me more, tell me more. And that was the only time during any of my auditing that I had a win, that I left the session feeling like on cloud nine, because I had just released shit that I didn't even know I had.
Exactly.
And she felt, and she didn't like, I guess she had broke like fucking whatever, because like her eyes, man, she was looking at me like somebody would their daughter, like with a genuine, like, and had I not been as comfortable with her, and had she not been as amazing of a person as she is, I would still not have come to terms with that shit. And I'm fine from it now. It doesn't fuck with me anymore, but that healed me. That is the only healing thing in Scientology that has ever occurred. But it fucks me up to know that somewhere, one of the worst things that I had ever talked about that had happened to me is written down in extreme detail. And at some point, if I piss them off enough, they're gonna make a fucking hate website about me, about how me being a little whore when I was a teenager and having sex with, being promiscuous with grown men. Because there were other sexual instances too that I had told her about.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think she don't know that that's what they do. So it's not
I
her
know.
fucking fault.
I
But there is
know.
a whole fucking file sitting there somewhere that goes into extreme graphic detail of sexual things I was doing as a minor child. That, again, if I piss them off enough, they're going to use it against me. And they're going to use me being suicidal against me. And they're going to use,
Exactly.
because a lot of the, you know, and I'm not ashamed of the things I did when I was younger. I didn't know no fucking better.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't supervised like that. And I was taken advantage of in many situations. I've always had a fucking weird relationship with sex, probably because of this shit, and I wasn't supervised. So I'm not ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, it just makes me sick to my stomach to think, again, if I piss them off enough, this is going to be what they did. That's all they have on me. All they have on me is me being an unsupervised teenager and me being suicidal while I was on staff. That's all they have on me. And whatever the fuck else my family has decided to tell them about what I'm doing currently, which isn't anything. Yeah. Sorry, that got weird.
It's totally okay. In fact, there's so many points that just sprung off. You make so many good points, because why would anybody get into Scientology if our auditor's just beating the shit out of us and it's all traumatizing like I just described? Now, you heard Trinity say the wins that she had, and I had many of those. That's what I thought was happening. But what they don't tell you, and Trinity, we're right back to the beginning of the title of this video and what we were talking about versus what you're told up front and what you think you're getting involved in, and then what actually happens, and you only realize that and reap the hell when you get out and go, holy shit. That's why I had a heart attack when I woke up out of this, and I was like, oh my God, they're gonna do my folders. Like, it all hit me at once. So
yeah.
this is why I try to fucking lay out the whole trap, because even the innocent person here in Hollywood Boulevard, and they're roping people in every day, well, hey, come take a test. Not everybody knows about this, or might even innocently walk in having some benefit. Like you just said, I got off so many burdens that never would have happened without Scientology.
Yeah.
I don't even think in a psychology session, because you have to answer the question, guys. They will find it and they will beat the shit, not beat the shit out of you. They will prevent you from leaving the session. Emotionally, that's what I was looking for.
You are emotionally entrapped in every step of the way.
And exactly. But if you knew that, right, Trinity, would you ever have signed the contract? It's none of it's real.
No.
And we get wins out of it, like you just described. I mean, how
I didn't have. That's the fucking crazy thing, is I was like living vicariously through wins that the older people in my family had. Because me personally,
right. So was I.
I just thought it was, I like growing up, I thought it was cool because
you
I'm like the outcast.
Right?
It was like the black sheep of the religions.
Fucking
and again, they took down the IRS. I'm very anti like IRS. Who the fuck isn't? It's un-American.
A lot of people aren't, but I am, because like you,
God.
I think they get a lot of seekers and people that are thinking outside the box. That's why it cracks me up when they go, oh, what a bunch of idiots. I'd never fall for that. Well, maybe maybe you wouldn't like step outside the box ever in your fucking life. Like a lot of us actually want more.
With a dude who was my age, who was like a physics, what was he? He was like a physics engineer or something like that. He worked for fucking NASA, is what I was saying. He had a job for NASA. So these are not dumb people.
No.
Like, me and my family are not dumb. Well, we're not dumb people. We are maybe not be really book smart, but we're very like street smart. And I like some of the smartest people I've ever met were Scientologists. It just goes to show you how easily you can, like brainwashing. Everybody who says that couldn't happen to me, how could you be so stupid? You don't know you're being brainwashed until you're like deprogramming yourself. You don't fucking know that. Now I would know if I'm being brainwashed now.
Yep.
But at the same time, I could still be because I can still be manipulated, because sometimes people in day-to-day life will do something super fucked up. We'll have a conversation about it, and the end of the conversation, I'm like, well, maybe that wasn't fucked up what they did. And then a couple hours later, when they're not talking to me, I'm like, no, that is fucked up. So I can catch myself being manipulated and brainwashed now.
Great.
So you don't
point.
like, and I wouldn't be able to tell that unless I had left leaving Scientology is what made me not so naive and gullible.
You make
You know
such
what
a
I
good
mean?
point. I need to
Because
fucking
again, the
riff.
guy that
Yes.
assaulted me, he told me he was 17 years old. And at
Mhm.
the time, no, he wasn't fucking 17. He didn't look 17 at all, but I was 14 years old and I was like naive and not supervised. But in hindsight, you know what I mean? So there's just like different. I had been fucking brainwashed my whole life. I didn't even know. And I didn't even know, like, I was never warned about this kind of shit. But
Nobody
now I
is
know.
Trinity. We're not taught this in school or anything. I would see what you said and raise you one. Not only are people that say that not had the lesson that you and I learned the hard way, and I'm thankful for that because you don't know when you're brainwashed. That's the funny thing. It's like you
You,
cannot suss it, and you kind of need a
yeah.
miracle sometimes to get out of it. So I would raise you by saying that not only is somebody that says that just not aware, I would suggest that they're already been brainwashed and they don't know because you know what exes wouldn't say that come out of this, or people in general that wouldn't make a comment like that because they've either experienced it before. Look, guys, when we're born into this world, we are propagandized from the schooling system, the TV, every fucking angle. And if you think you're special and you don't have your own belief system that you cling on to, you're fucking delusional
You
because
do.
we're all subject to the brainwashing when we pop out of the womb. So that's the starting point. And then if you're smart enough, you will learn that lesson and perhaps, become your true self and break away from all that bullshit. So someone that says, I would never be brainwashed. What a bunch of idiots. Well, A, you wouldn't know you were brainwashed. And B, nobody in the world could fucking say that, honestly, if you just get right down to the core of what we're talking about. So what religion do you belong to? Do you have a particular political party that you like to follow? I mean, everybody has their fucking ideology, and when they cling
Yes.
to it, it wouldn't be the last person that would suspect while they watch X Scientology saying, "Huh, what a bunch of idiots! I'd never fall for that." Motherfucker, none of us were taught this shit. None of us pop out
Yeah.
of the womb knowing how coercive control works. It's all around us. Sorry for the fiery shit,
Yeah.
Trinity, but you fired me up
No,
there.
you're
I
good.
just
You're
get
right.
so sick of
You
hearing the
are right.
idiocy of that.
Yeah.
So I'll
It's
get off the
so like,
pedestal. Sorry, ma'am.
no, you're good. I mean,
Seriously,
we
this is just
fucking are
retarded.
because we went through it. So now we're out, and now we're like, when people are like, "Oh, I would never." Yes, I. Here's the thing, and I know this about me. I'm more self-aware now. I can manipulate people really well.
Me
And I
too.
can gaslight
I
people really well.
don't,
And I
but I
can get
can.
you exactly. I can get you to do what I need you to do. And
I
I
know you
catch my
can.
fucking self doing it. I catch myself doing it and I have to stop. I have to like mentally in the middle of a conversation when I can feel myself like I'm admitting to something fucked up I did, but I'm trying to convince you it wasn't that fucked up. I catch myself doing it and I have to stop. And I have to be like, no, hang on. Actually, no, I'm fucked up. You should quit being my friend because of this. Or I was really pissed off at you, so I said a bunch of shit like this about you, and I'm sorry I was throwing a fit. Like, that's my bad. Like I have to do that now. And now, like, my best friend, again, I can gaslight like it's nothing. So I fuck with her and I like jokingly gaslight her and she's like, "LOL, stop," because like you're getting kind of serious. I'm like, "Oh my god, okay, I thought we were joking." And that's like what people don't realize, that the people who are saying I would never fall for that, I'm like, dude, I could do it right fucking now to you and you
Oh,
wouldn't
you
even
make
realize
such
it.
another good point. I want
Like,
to reach out and give you a freaking virtual hug because, like, I'm so tracking with this conversation. It's like, you know what? They make us, my friends, into master manipulators. We come out of these with tools that would rip your mind apart. I'm not proud of this at all, but this is why I'm thankful for my Scientology experience. I learned so much by being in it and then especially getting out and trying to take it apart. And I was going to ask you about this, Trinity. Like, I don't think that will ever go away. I don't fucking manipulate people. And if I do, it's certainly not conscious. And I try to
yeah,
be aware of that. I don't feel like I'm bullshitting anybody. Anybody that's listening, I'm pretty a straight shooter, but
yeah,
we have these tools because in order to survive my fucking family, I had to learn how to read their emotions. I had to become a master manipulator. That's probably why I became an actor too.
yeah,
Before I found out it was really about expressing from the soul. But for the longest time, I could bullshit myself as an actor fairly well because I was a master manipulator and I had to be
yeah,
growing up in Scientology. And when we come out, we have that. That's just why Trinity. I looked at myself in the mirror, man. My ego got smashed. I fucking cried every day for years. I was like, I need to become a better person because I'm a fucking piece of shit. I don't
yeah,
hear a hell of a lot of X's in the community that speak out. I think they skipped that process completely,
yeah,
man. I mean, I fucking for 10 years, I knew I was a piece of shit. And I was like, I will learn everything I can because I can't take this pain a second time. So I need to never be manipulated again. I need to know what happened to me. In other words, I need to learn the lesson. And man, so much of my time was spent not beating myself up because I knew I was victimized and lied to. But since I had the eyes to see and the ears to hear now, I'm going to take responsibility for that, and I'm going to become a better person. And even if it almost killed me, because I let the emotions roll. I forced myself to watch all the Scientology documentaries, Leah Remini. I cried. Oh, I would make myself go into the pain, and I had a place to act it out. But we still come out with these fucking tools of manipulation. And I do feel like we are dangerous people in a certain way if we want to continue being a manipulator, because we learned from a fucking master manipulator, Hubbard. I mean, how does it get any better than that? What I wanted to ask you is, what do you have to say on that? And do you feel what I'm talking about, man? We got some tools, right? Because we had to survive.
Yeah.
And we can't
I was thinking, because like today, currently this week, I've been doing a position like in the back of the house, like in the kitchen. I've been doing 2 positions by myself, and I got to work at like 5:15 this morning. I'm going to be there at 5 tomorrow. So I worked.
Don't let me keep you all night, today. Trinity. Whatever you got to roll.
No, you're good. I literally am fine off of like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. But as I'm sitting there, because my daughter, she has an ear infection, so she's been calling me all day, like saying, "Mom, come home because my ear hurts." My husband took her to the doctor when I got off, so I had to hurry up and produce the shit that I need to fucking produce. And I'm sitting there in high gear. I took maybe 2 15-minute breaks. I was supposed to have a total of an hour's worth of a break today. And I'm just like, I'm sitting there cutting this fucking food and like going fast as fuck. And I'm like, holy shit, this is what I did when I was on staff. But this is now, it feels good now because now I'm about to get all this fucking money. Like, and
and you're not hurting people.
My work ethic.
Without knowing it.
Exactly.
Without knowing it.
Yeah, not intentionally, but like my work ethic, I had good work ethic before I was on staff. My work ethic after being on staff, I'm going to get this shit done. I'm going to get it done.
It increased the shit out of it, right, Trinity?
Yes. Like I was already the type of, if you're going to stand there and complain, just get the fuck out of my way. I would rather do it all versus sit there and hear you complain. On staff, that's the attitude. It's like either shut the fuck up and get it done, or go to ethics and get out of my face. Like quit giving me excuses, quit giving me a sob story. It's not that hard. Just get the stat up. That is how it was. And that's like the thing. I'd be sitting there writing these letters and like, because you'd have to type the letters, print them, fold them with promo that pertains to what you said in the letter, and then address these letters. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're doing 600 of them,
that's a lot. I've done it.
You spend half the week typing the shit and printing the shit. And you have to print like 3 or 4 copies of the shit, and then you have to sit there and address it. My hand would hurt so bad. I'd be almost in tears, but I would get the shit done, and my handwriting would look good every single time. And I had people help me sometimes. Like they would send expediters in to help me, because the lady that I worked with was a Scientologist letter registrar. What is it? She would reg people to come and do like their next bridge step. So like already like bona fide Scientologist is who she would write to. I was new public, but she was producing, you had to have more of a like significant letter on her end. So she was producing half of what I was producing. Hers just took more thought. So like she was an older woman. She was like in her 50s, maybe 60s. So she like, her producing half of what I was producing felt like what I was producing for her. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
totally.
They would sometimes, and they would want us to keep that stat up, because when the stats started crashing, our stats were one of the only stats that stayed up stats. So they were pushing as many people to come help us get these fucking letters out as possible, because I was getting responses. Even if it was,
I was going to ask you about that. I'm going to keep that in mind.
Yeah. So
I wanted to ask you about that.
Any response is a reach. You don't quit writing to somebody unless they threaten to get a lawyer involved. If
That's
they
right.
respond to you,
even if they die, Trinity,
yes.
Even if they die, you don't.
Yes.
You can
you
still
ask
write
them,
to
do you have
them
a death?
shit.
I had to ask people if they had a death certificate to prove that they were dead. Or we were going to keep
Really?
writing to them. Yes, dude.
I didn't know about that.
Yes.
What the fuck?
And
just to clarify real quick, guys,
Yeah.
what she's talking, just to keep the audience up to speed, because they're going, what the fuck? Yeah. First of all, what she's writing about, letters out, that's the most important statistic. Outflow equals inflow. So this is a really important post. I spent hours doing the same shit, Trinity, writing all the letters and shit when I was like in trouble, and just when I was on staff. So it's letters out, and nobody's dead file. It doesn't matter how long they've been off lines. It's exactly like a narcissist, and what HG Tutor will tell you. Once they own you, you might have left their life, but they'll circle back 10 years later to do what they call a Hoover. So you're never out of the psychopath's life, even though you left. So
Yeah.
that's the way Hubbard treated it. I just wanted to give some groundwork that
Yeah.
just you're not bullshitting.
Yeah. Right.
Everybody's always a prospect. Even if that's why you should never give them your number, never take a personality test. Even if you want, whatever. I'm getting on a
Even
rant,
if you
but I
go on
just
the website and you sign up, like send me more information, and
yeah,
you send in
don't
an
do it.
OCA, they're gonna call you about that OCA. Like literally, what happens is any response is a reach, unless they are
Right.
being completely in theta, like entirely in theta. And so HCO reads the letters first. And if it's super in theta, or if they're saying, and I know now, like if they're talking about
Interesting.
sensitive information that could wake you up, they
Mm-hmm.
keep the letters. They don't even let me see it. But
Very
other than that, if
interesting.
somebody responds to me, I have to write back because it's a reach. Even if they said, Trinity, fuck you and eat shit, they're still, why would they respond if they weren't reaching? If
So
they
what
didn't
would it
want it?
take, Trinity, for what were you told
Them
and what were you trained
talking,
on? What would it take?
if they're dead and they can prove that the person died, because my
So
husband was the
ridiculous.
CF clerk, so he would have to do the research, so to speak, to see if this person's actually, like, if they're, to find, he would have to find new email addresses, new phone numbers, new addresses, and figure out if these people are dead. That's kind of like what he did. And there was
That's
like
crazy.
whatever, that's basically what he did. And so to me, to be dead filed, you would have to sit there and probably, like, now I know, like, name drop Leah Remini, going clear and shit like that,
Would
or
that
just
work?
completely.
What advice would you
Yeah,
have
if
if
they,
somebody
like,
got
now
mail
I
and they want to get
know,
out their
because
mailing
I
address?
got a letter that said you guys are a cult, but that's all it said
Mm-hmm.
basically. So I was able to be like, oh my god, it's not a cult. Why don't you come in and
Right.
see for yourself, kind of thing. So it wasn't super in, like, it was in theta, but not like super. It, they didn't say anything that would like wake me up. But now I know, because I've gotten. Okay, here's the fucked up thing that would piss me off. My letters out stat was always like what's it
Enormously
called?
high?
It was, but what's the fucking word for it?
Upstat?
There's normal, and then there's
Affluent?
affluence. Yes.
Power.
So
Yeah.
yes, it was like my stat had gone to power a couple of times, but affluent, it was always normal and up. My letters out, my letters in, I think the most I got back in 1 week was 6. And this is what would piss me off. I would write to like my aunt, who's not really in Scientologist, and her kids, and I would
Mm-hmm.
call them on the phone like, hey, please write me back so my stat can be up so I can get paid more.
Oh
And they
my
would, and my
God.
friends would do that
Of
too.
course they would. I had my friends do the
But
same shit when I was
I
upset.
remember 1 week I would have been upstat, but I guess I got a couple of letters back that were in theta that I couldn't read, so it
Mm-hmm.
didn't count. And I'm like, why does it not fucking count? If they wrote back,
That's
didn't they?
madness.
Why does that not count? Oh, because I can't read it, and I can't, like, it's, we can't benefit from it because of the, like, HCO can't turn it over to me. You know what I mean?
Give me the
That shit used to
stat.
make me
God
so
damn it. I
mad.
need to eat this week.
That's what I'm saying. And like, I mean,
Oh
no,
my
it was greed
God.
on my end too, because when we were
It's
making money,
all
we were making
self
money.
festering on each other. It's just
Yeah.
such, I cannot believe this conversation. And then with Chris yesterday, it's just when I think I it can't get any madder. It's so healing to talk about this, Trinity, because man, I forget about this stuff. And every time I hear it, it does something to, you know how we're supposedly relieving charge, in auditing sessions
Yeah.
and by doing the courses, I'm
This
literally
is
relieving
actually that.
charge. It
Like,
really
this
is,
is
man.
real life in real time doing it.
It really
I
fucking
forgot
is.
about, I remember whenever I texted you and told you what I wanted to talk about, I
Mhm.
thought that it would be cool to talk about this because I forget
Yeah.
so much of what it was like to be on staff, and then sometimes things will like re-stimulate me, and I'll be like, oh
Mhm.
my god, like I'm working like a fucking dog for now, and for what? Because it would like take me back. Like now I'm in a position where, the employer and myself mutually benefit from each other.
Yeah.
So I'm there to do a
Exactly.
job for you so you don't have to. You're there to pay me. I'm going to take the time off that I want. And if you're not willing to accommodate that, I will go elsewhere. So it's all transactional for me now.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
I demand my time off. Like I'm going to fucking Vegas in like 10 days. We're going to Vegas, and then we're going to Arizona, and we're going to be gone for a week. And I just took a vacation, like a
Good
2-week
for you.
vacation. And thank you.
You could never do that on staff, and you'd have to
No, and that's
CSW for
every
it if you
time.
wanted to.
Yes, and they would probably say no, especially with me. They would have
Exactly.
said no because I was in low. Towards the end, I was getting in lower so much because I was like, I was starting to question things without outwardly like questioning things, but I was being a shit and I was interpolating everybody, and I had this look on my face all the time, and I started asking my office mate more questions about like Dave Miscavige and his family and L. Ron Hubbard and shit, because like my brother told me that like David Miscavige had a wife and she was
Mhm.
missing, and then I found an opportunity to ask her because she had been in. I didn't know he was married. A lot of people my age didn't even know the dude was married, because when she was in the public eye, we were little kids not paying attention.
Exactly.
When she went missing, there wasn't nothing for us to miss. We wouldn't be able to tell her in an old
That's
replay of an
another great
event.
point.
So when my brother told me that, like, I was, oh my God, I didn't believe him because I had never seen it. So then I asked her, because she was in the Sea Org in the 70s and shit. And as soon as I started asking more about like David Miscavige, like family background, now knowing, because most of his family is like fucking declared, she was just like, why are you crying? As soon as I asked, like, where's he married? She's, why are you crying so hard? Like,
Why are
literally
you
took
even
off her
asking?
glasses and was like, she was like looking at me like for over her glasses, like giving me very vague answers. And then as soon as I said, well, was he married? Or something along those lines, she sat back and she took off her glasses and she's like, why are you crying so hard? And I was like, he's our leader. I'm curious. Can I not be curious? And she's like, you can be curious, but why him? Like, why are you asking about his family? Something along those lines. And then she just didn't talk to me for the rest of the day, because we worked with his twin sister's daughter and one of his nephews. So we had people who like knew who were his actual family, like his twin sister. What's her fucking name? Denise, Debbie. Her name is like
Flo was David's. I don't know the names. I can't pull them out of my ass.
I could probably look it up.
I bet you in the comments, guys, if you know the David Miscavige's sisters and Alonzo,
I'm pretty sure it's his twin sister. Her daughter
Denise,
worked with me.
Maybe
Denise Gentile. That's her name. Her daughter. I'm not going to say her daughter's name because she never did anything to me. But I worked with, and her daughter was perfectly fine. Like a lot of the people that I worked with were perfectly fine, and they were super sweet. There was a handful of people that were just god awful, and the ethics officer was like, there was a couple ethics officers, but the one that me and my family went to the most, because she kind of took ownership of us, was fucking nuts. She was nuts, and her fucking twin sister.
That's a good point, Clearwater Cheryl. And I wanted to ask you about the Trinity, because I've never heard anybody say what you just said. Very few people know who the hell Shelley even is in the church. It sounded
I didn't know
like
who Mike Rinder was either.
Yeah.
Or
so
Marty.
when you
no idea.
So it's like irrelevant to ask these people, but it sounds like that gal that was questioning you it had come up in her universe, or she knew something that you should not be asking. But in general, I didn't know who the fuck any of these people were. I didn't know anything about David. It's off of our radar. And a lot of that goes back to the Orwellian secrecy, compartmentalization. You know, we talk about the pyramid a lot. Whenever people would disappear from staff, they might be suicidal. They might have left under terrible circumstances, but they just go, oh, he's been transferred over to so-and-so. Nobody's talking about any of the shit about where's Shelley, or even the Xenu shit, you know, where you got to get up to OT3. This is why I really think it takes living Scientology getting out as to know how to speak their language, because you would know the button points to press. But all this where's Shelley stuff, it certainly doesn't have an impact on anybody really knowing what the hell you're talking about. Not everybody, but somebody will, because it sounds like your gal Trinity.
Age for sure.
They didn't have it. They're clueless. We're kept in the dark.
Yeah, and she was in the Sea Org for a little bit. She got out of it. I don't know how she was able to get back on staff. I guess she paid off her freeloaders or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot, because here's the thing, guys. Like, when you're in Scientology, public or staff, you are so indoctrinated not to like look at the media and to look at the tabloids and shit. So all of this criminal shit that they've been doing for years, you have no idea about. Whenever I was like watching Leah Remini and listening to like podcasts and stuff, and they were talking about like these crazy crimes that Scientology and Scientologists have committed, or like the situations of like familial pedophilia and just pedophilia, like abuse in general, I would be shaking, like in tears, shaking, because like I said, I've had feelings that shit was weird, because it was just like, I also for a little bit I'm like, this is money laundering, because how the fuck are you paying us $20 an hour or $20 a week? But this is because I googled what Scientology's net worth, and it was like fucking $1 billion or something.
It's about $3 billion.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so like when so much shit was confirmed, because I had this facade, Scientologists don't commit crimes, Scientologists aren't bad people, and I'm like, no, they fucking suck, dude. And then watching Mary Khan's episode, Mary Khan's son,
Mary,
Sammy,
fuck, man, her story is
her
so
son was my
heartbreaking.
fucking senior, and my husband and my
Really?
little brother's senior when we were expediters. Yes, and
Really?
he was sweet. Like, he was kind of a dick sometimes, but like, I don't know if she's ever gonna watch this, but like, if it's any constellation, like when I was there, he was very handsome. He looked healthy, and he
Hmm.
was happy all the time. And like, he had a lot of friends. He had like a group and stuff. I think he was like a few years older than me, but
Is this
yeah, like,
recent intel, Trinity? Because you left in what, 2021-ish? If
yeah,
Barry
so
Kahn
as of
wasn't, yeah.
2019, he was in HCO, and he looked amazing, and he had a bunch of friends, and he was very like on purpose with going up the bridge. I don't
Hmm.
He was on his OT levels, I think, or his grades or something, but he could be a dick. He was like a health buff. He was like a personal trainer on the side or something like that. So he would like
Hmm.
side eye me when I would let my kid have like a Rice Krispie treat or drink out of my soda
Oh
or whatever.
Lord.
So he was like one of those, like he would give my husband shit. He's like, "Oh my god, there's your kid drinking a huge." So he wasn't like outwardly a dick, but he was just like, "Oh my god, there's your baby drinking a soda," and I'm like, "Ha, yeah, fuck you, you don't have kids, like leave me alone." But he was fine. Like, and I don't know if she's ever gonna watch this, but when me and my husband, like a week out, watched the first two episodes, and on Hulu, it was the third episode of season one.
Hmm.
And so on the second episode at the end, it started showing previews for the next episode, and a picture flashed of her family, and Sammy was in it. And me and my husband both were like, "What the fuck?" So we hurried up and we went to the next episode, and we listened to his story, like his and his mom, like his mom's story. And that really fucked us up, and like both of
Yeah.
us cemented it to us more, because like Sammy was on fucking TV. I just a week ago had a conversation with this dude, and I had read on his, because you can look up people in the system that they have, and I had read on his shit that his real parents were declared suppressive people, but it's okay because he has adoptive parents. And like, I thought that it was like, I didn't realize that it was, I didn't fucking know her story. Like, we don't know that shit.
I
And
know.
it fucked that story fucked me and my husband up bad, because like this mother crying about her son and her, like, I don't, he, as of 2019, like, he's healthy, he's fine, he has
That's good.
friends. And that that fucking sucked, because I'm like sitting here again, you haven't talked to him, and I think it was like 8 years when I watched this episode. I just had a conversation with him, and he
Wow.
doesn't know. I promise you, he
Wow.
has no fucking idea how badly his parents are hurting. He
Again,
has
you
no
make
idea
another
his
great
parents
point.
are sobbing on national television because of how badly they miss him, and he has no idea
I know.
that their intentions were not bad,
I
and that they just want
know.
their kid back. His brother wasn't on it, but like, again, if any of you guys watch it, like, watch this.
There you
I don't know
go.
if he's still on staff now. I'm pretty sure he probably is. Um,
There you
yeah,
go, Mary.
yeah,
And you make such another good point, Trinity. If I felt how I was talking about how I just leaned into the pain. I'm like, just give it to me because I want to get out of this as fast as possible.
yeah,
I'm not going to run emotionally. And I also felt like I could take it because of the acting, and I had a place to act it out rather than go kill everybody around me, which is what I really wanted to do.
yeah,
But I was that aftermath, Lee Remedy and the aftermath. I watched that so many times because I wanted to cry. I wanted to feel what I wanted to. It was validating. That show was so amazing, Trinity, because I used to ramble to my friends that knew nothing about Scientology about the trauma I was feeling, and nobody understood. But Going Clear came out, followed by Leah Remini, and all my friends finally go, "Oh, so that's what you were rambling about for fucking 10 years. Oh, we understand." And the Scientologists don't know just what Trinity said. They don't know. My parents didn't know that they're hurting me. We don't know any of this. Again, we're kept in the dark, and we really think we're helping mankind. It's because of the
yeah,
compartmentalization, which we've been talking about throughout this episode. So, if there was any Scientologist, I feel that accidentally or on purpose, or it got snuck to them, they could hear Mary Khan's story, they could hear all the stories on the aftermath, it will break them. In fact, I was talking to my friend about he won't watch it because of how traumatizing it is. And it's bad, guys. I mean, I don't know if you've seen it or not. If you're an ex and you've watched it and you're anything like me, it fucking hurts to watch that. But
yeah,
but that would open up the eyes, don't you think, Trinity? Let's just say it'll. it'll probably never happen because how do you even get access to TV and all that shit?
I mean, I
But if
wouldn't
they watch
say
just
that.
Mary's story and all the stories, really,
Yeah.
do you think that would break them out of it if you had a program
Yes.
Scientologist that just sat down and watched season 1 of The Aftermath? Don't you think there was no way they
For
wouldn't?
me, it like again, I had already had doubts, and as soon as I left, like I started going online and looking at shit. But it really, really hit home to me because this is somebody he was my senior. I reported to him for a period of time. We would say hey to each other in the halls. He would come, like, like we spoke, not like in great depth on a daily basis, but we were there at the same place 7 days a week. And I wouldn't consider him a friend, but we were acquaintances and we were friendly and we could have like a lighthearted conversation together. So seeing his mom and his dad on national television, and then I'm going back and like mentally trying to like think, like, does it weigh on his heart every day that his mom, that he doesn't have his family?
He
Like, it's
doesn't
his
know though,
mom, his
right?
brother.
It weighs on him, but he doesn't
Yeah, like,
know. He doesn't know. He
he
thinks he's
doesn't
doing the
know, but
right
that's like
thing, right?
that's what makes me think, because sometimes sometimes people there, they will just zone out and they'll just look, like, I'm sure you've seen, they just kind of longingly like
Watch
look
over the
around.
rainbow. They have that
Yeah,
zoned out look.
yeah, and it's like sometimes, like, whenever I would see people do that, like now that there's been, I've heard Sam, like, his family story, and then that lady that we were talking about the other night, Sheila or whatever, who was the recording on Tony Ortega's channel of her getting declared at flag, and
That's
she
so
was name
brutal
dropping a bunch of last names
that you
of
knew.
people I was brushing shoulders with, and one of the boss shops almost fucked me and Pete financially. Would have fucked us to the point where we'd have to declare bankruptcy. It didn't happen, but that, like, her listening to her be declared and hearing that ethics officer, because he sounded exactly like my ethics officer,
And
and
Laura's, he
watching
sounded
Mary.
just like Laura's dad that we were talking about
Yes,
earlier. They all
yes,
have the
and
same
then
brutality.
Sammy's parents, like Mary Const, I'm going to refer to as Mary Const story. She, like, that, like, it fucked me up. It fucked me up, but it woke me up, and it made me realize, like, yeah, everything people were saying online, it aligns with what I was thinking and feeling. But until I heard people real life name dropping and telling stories of people that I just spent every day of my life with for a year and a half, it just made it that much more real to me.
Absolutely.
And it's just, no,
That's what Aaron says too. I didn't, when I interviewed Aaron, something came up like that, and he says, well, just the fact that people in the cult know me, and I try to be fair and lay out this information, that alone, maybe that's the thing, Trinity. Like, we don't know if the stories are true or not on the aftermath going clear or whatever, but if you know somebody that's in the cult, that could also be a triggering thing to listen further. Because what we do, my friends, is we would shut down. We would not. None of the Scientologists are going to watch Leah Remini because we know they're not. They're talking bullshit. So I think you got to hit the heart, right? That might be knowing somebody. Oh, I knew Aaron. Didn't he used to be in the cult or whatever? Oh, Trinity. And then just like you said, Trinity. Oh, I knew so and so. That can maybe open up the heart. And I swear, if anybody watches that's coming out of Scientology or is in Scientology and accidentally watches that, they probably will recognize someone high up in the cult. Wait, didn't Rinder used to be what? He's out now? If you can just get past that mind control, or however you penetrate it, from there on forward, all the videos of ex-Scientologists, Leah Remini, going clear, it's all there. And then if Trinity, the process, you just suck up that information and watch everybody's videos for weeks, months, years, and you're like, what the fuck? And everything's a new revelation. Hubbard was into the occult and he was like beating his wife. What are you talking about? Like, it's just this whole, and then you read all the books and everything.
I spent like all of 2020, like I was obsessing over it. Like, I was obsessing over hearing every bit of Scientology content. And then it got to a point where I felt like people were just like money grabbing a lot of shit, like telling, and
That's true.
It fucked me up because I'm like, well, I'm still hurt. Like, this is real for, like, not to invalidate anybody, but whenever I felt like it was a bunch of money grabbing, I was like, it turned me off. Then I was like, okay, I don't want my whole personality to be this anymore.
Amen.
So then I would go through phases where I would be like, oh my God, this would make a really sick video. Let me talk about Shelly's disappearance. And I'd be like, oh my God, what am I going to say that hasn't already been said 1,000 times? But then whenever I would get in these periods where I would want to make a video about like a subtopic of Scientology, I would consume a bunch of anti-Scientology content. And then it would revitalize my, oh my God, I need to tell my story. So then I would sit down and try to film my story, and then something would happen and I wouldn't fucking do it.
You're not
But
alone in
that's
that.
also like watching, like when Aaron started uploading constantly, it started like revitalizing,
Invigorating you to start going
I'm
down
like,
even
oh
more of the
my
rabbit hole.
God, let me fucking, if he can do it, like, let me just, like, it'll
Exactly.
piss them off if I talk about my story. Maybe I can help somebody. And then I let out my story, and then
Good
I
job,
started
by the
watching,
way.
I binge watched your content for a good 4
And
days before I ever
oh,
reached
thank
out
you.
to you.
And I watched all your
Yeah,
stuff
and
too.
yeah, and like, and that's why now we're sitting here doing this, and this is like the fifth
Beautiful
video,
thing,
fifth or
Trinity.
sixth video.
So
And it
amazing.
now, like, and I've had people from my time in Tampa reach out to me because they are under the radar, and they've seen Aaron's channels and they saw me on it, or they saw your channel and they saw me on it, or that Ian Rafluka, I can't
I
pronounce
can't
his
pronounce
last
it either,
name.
but
Dr. Berg, whoever the fuck
Dr.
his
Berg's
son.
son, keto.
Yes, he
Well,
had, I guess, had shared something, and somebody from back in the day during my time in Tampa had seen it and was like, holy fuck, that's Trinity. So they went and they started watching my shit, and then I got like really weird random emails at like fucking 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and I'm like, and they started name dropping like my family. They still had my phone number from when I was on staff. And I was like, I was freaking out because I'm like, is this genuine, or is this them trying to
I know.
get in with me, get my personal information? And it's genuine. But it's like you said, and they even told me that watching Sammy, like Mary Khan's episode, when they saw Sammy, they were like, holy fuck. Because again, this is somebody we saw every day, and they were on staff longer than I was, and they were on staff, they're under the fucking radar right now. And so I want to kind of steer away from that topic because I don't want to accidentally slip up. But again, so that's what I'm saying. Like, people you wouldn't even think are watching, but that person's the only person that has reached out to me. And I already had a feeling that there were people from my time there that were watching my shit, and that I was coming up on their stuff, because a lot of them were subscribed to me and followed me on all my social media. So once you're on, unless you block the social media, once something is on your algorithm, it's going to take a lot of work for it to completely erase from your algorithm. So once I was on their shit, I'm bound to come back. So all I can think of every time I lose a handful of subscribers, it's people from Tampa who were subscribed to me, saw my content, and whether they watched it or not, now that doubt's planted in their head. They may have blocked me, they may have unsubscribed, but that they're always going to remember Trinity was on YouTube talking about Scientology, and they're going to watch it. So now it's been confirmed to me. Now I already had a feeling, and now one person has reached out to me, and I can only imagine. And again, if anybody from my time at Tampa is watching this, whether you're my family, whether we hardly talked, my email is in an email you can contact me from is in all of my videos. This person emailed me on a personal email that they had from my time there, and my phone number that they already had. But if you don't have my contact information, my email that is public, contact me on it. Find me you've had me on your social media probably before. Find me again. Send me a message. You're good. If you're under the radar, like, it's all good. It's all good entirely.
That is such a perfect place to wrap up. But oh my God, I got to tell you, these things are exhausting, but in a good way, because I have gotten so much off of this chat with you, Trinity. People are asking, like, where's your channel? Yeah, guys, I'm going to throw it up here. And also, always, the guest is in the description box. So if you ever wonder and you want to find the people's channel that we're talking about or how to contact them, it will always be up there. And let me share that real quick, Trinity. I mean, what a freaking, thank you so much for just coming on here and sharing and talking with me and hanging out. Because anytime you want to come on to do more, and just continue on, I think we have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, it always, because we didn't even hit everything I wanted to get to, because it's just so like, it never stops.
And no, that's why I'm saying we could do endless videos. And I know we're thinking about doing some other stuff off of Scientology, talking about perhaps the bigger cult or some shit, Yeah. So why don't we do this? Why don't we end off here? We've been going, did you know it's been 2.5 hours? So why don't we end off here? And then let's talk on the phone. And and we'll set up the next one because I'd love to
Yes.
actually keep this dialogue going. It's really cool. And
Yes.
what she's talking about, by the way, guys, is thank you for preaching that at the end, because that's the most important thing. We talked about, how people might be getting out of this thing. And she's talking about, without saying any names or anything, because Trinity had the balls to start telling her story and go onto Aaron's channel and others, that person who knew her personal email reached out to her. And of course, she was rightfully freaked out, as I am, because I mean, you always have to be on your toes. You never know who's what or whatever the fuck, because they can hide behind handles. So pardon me if I'm a little paranoid, guys. It's like you have to be really careful sussing who's doing what. But this person turned out to be legit, because the very thing we were talking about before, they recognized the person. Oh, wait, that's Trinity. She's on YouTube. Oh, that's Aaron. He's on YouTube. So here's some tools that she's dropping on how to do it. And everybody that comes forward when they're ready, or even if they're not, but nobody, we never heal with our trauma and then we go on and start talking about it. Whenever you feel like you're personally ready, I promise you from personal experience, Trinity will tell you what she just shared. There are people that are watching that know us, and that we can help them get out simply by speaking out. Even if you never hear a success story, even if this person never leaves a comment, know that people are watching. And whenever you feel like you're ready, there's plenty of platforms to come speak your fucking truth. And it's almost guaranteed to bring more people out. Maybe that's the way we do it. Warn people and get people out.
Point?
Yeah, please.
If you reach out to me and you're on the fence about shit, you don't have to contact the Aftermath Foundation, or you don't have to make a fucking post, a video, none of that. If you just want somebody that can share some common ground with, that you knew personally, that is doing something, like getting out like you want to, if you just need a fucking friend, dude, even if you still identify as a Scientologist and you still want to be a Scientologist, fine. Perfect. But I would rather you contact me and let's share some common ground so you don't fucking kill yourself, dude. Like, that's all. I'm not going to convince you to get out of Scientology. If you want to be a Scientologist, be a Scientologist. I'm not here to convert anybody onto the other side or anything.
Amen,
but if you just
Trinity.
have some questions, or you just want to talk. You don't even have to tell me who you are. We'll be on the phone for hours, because this person wasn't going to tell me who they were, and that was fine by me. Like, I would literally rather, even if you're still inside, like, I just don't want nobody to kill themselves, man.
That's feel you,
and I would. All it is.
I say exactly what Trinity says, and there's been plenty of people like that. You don't have to give your name. You can practice Scientology to your heart's intent. If you need somebody to lean on, I was suicidal, so was Trinity. We'll be the first to tell you we know what the fuck it feels like, and I didn't have anybody to talk to when I came out. So by all means, reach out. I try to get back to the emails, and sorry guys, by the way, like, unless it's important or somebody reaching out or whatever, I just don't have the fucking time. These videos take up enough, and I have a life. But I'm always around for people that want to reach out. So is Trinity. Anybody that you feel comfortable with, they'd be more than willing to help you. And you can practice indie Scientology. You can do whatever you want. We're not going to judge. Yeah. We know where you're at. And there's a whole community out here that you can finally reach out to, even beyond the Aftermath and everything else. Whatever you need, just reach out to people. We're freaking here, man. That was a great way.
I love that. I love reconnecting with people.
I know. And I'm so glad that you got this huge freaking win with. We can't talk about who we're talking about. There you go. That's what I want to say. And
when they watch this, you made my whole week, and I am so glad that you were around for real.
It does wonders too, my friends. I've wanted to quit this fucking thing so many times, but then someone, reaches out, or all we need is just to feel like we're helping people, because that's why we got into Scientology. So just a nice little comment, somebody reaching out, hey, I can't tell my name, whatever. It makes everything worth it, man. And Trinity, you know what? Like, that really is like all that we need, because that's what we got into Scientology for. And it's like, it was fake help. We were hurting people. We didn't know, because we were under a spell. But now when we come out, at least we know that we're not harming anybody, and you can actually deliver real help. And I got to tell you, my friend, this has been the most rewarding thing ever, way beyond Hollywood acting and all that bullshit. This is really where it's at. But I wanted to share Trinity's channel real quick. Again, link in the description box. And here we go. So at all hours of the night, she'll be shit posting. And I think that you're going to do more content, Trinity, coming up. Yes, I know you're not going to do all Scientology. I know. Thank God. Maybe we can move it over to something else too. Yeah. But she will be posting more. Give her some time, because she's kicking ass in her job or whatever. But I know it's on her mind, because we've talked. And she has many different videos on topics, including, and please listen to her Scientology story, because we've gone into such depth, or she goes into such depth. And it's just a really cool personality to listen to, well beyond what we were able to cover in any of these two interviews. So, my friends, as always, we're going to leave you with the absolute dickhead that started all this, and we will see you very soon, my friends. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Take care.
Now, here is L. Ron Hubbard.
And you find in each and every case, you're finding the phenomenon of entities, communications, spaceships, other planets, locations, beingness in other states, and all of this, and you find this to be a consistent condition. You have fulfilled this definition of the mesh universe.